Welcome back, everybody, to Chess.com's continued coverage of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup, part of the Grand Chess Tour, and we move into round 10 with the action heating up. Two players looking like they have their best chess here in St. Louis and might even make a move for winning the whole thing. Of course, one of those players is not necessarily Hikaru Nakamura, but his good friend, was here with me. Hey, everybody. They went away too soon.
Oh, I thought you were talking to me. The good friend you were referring to wasn't me?
Nope, not you. But I'm happy you're here.
I feel like you're just saying that.
That's not true. I don't just say things on these shows. Anyway, well, we're having a great time here, and we hope that all of you that are with us will stick with us throughout the show. We've got a lot of action. As I said ahead here, 2 more rounds left, rounds 10 and 11. Let's remind everybody of where we're at. Actually, we're here covering the Grand Chess Tour. That is the biggest, longest running event in the 2019 calendar. It's 8 events total with 1.75 million in prizes. Points accumulate to the finals in London, and the Sinquefield Cup is what we've been covering here for almost the entire month of August, if you include the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. I'll say we've been covering chess from St. Louis for pretty much the entire month, and that's where the standings were at as we headed into the Sinquefield Cup after the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. There's going to be a shakeup for sure, as the 2 guys that are leading the Sinquefield Cup are right there, Ding Liren and Jan Nepomniachtchi, who were not leading the Grand Chess Tour, but after this event is all said and done, that might change, Robert.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been a tight contest from start to finish here. Jan Nepomniachtchi has 4 decisive games, 3 of those in his favor, and 1 loss, but the rest of the field continues to draw, continues to be very evenly matched, and so despite the lead that Ding Liren and Jan Nepomniachtchi share, and despite their great games yesterday, there's no guarantees with 2 rounds remaining.
Yeah, and let's talk about the pairings that are coming up here for this round. Obviously, we mentioned that Ding Liren and Jan Nepomniachtchi, respectively, are leading the way. 2 players that actually played each other in the last round actually, no, that wasn't true. MVL and Aronian did not play each other in the last round. First gaffe of the day. Didn't take more than 5 minutes. Levon Aronian facing off against Ding Liren here with the white pieces. What do you expect to happen there?
Well, I think Levon, who's not having a great tournament, will play it solidly. Ding Liren doesn't or shouldn't risk much because he is tied with Jan Nepomniachtchi for the tournament lead. And as we see down there, Jan is playing against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And unfortunately for Nepo, he has a very bad record against MVL. In fact, he's never beaten him in classical chess. But we talked about how that was a similar case with Wesley So, and Jan defeated him. So, who knows if that will hold true.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. One of the storylines we highlighted yesterday was, of course, Wesley So's, at the time, +5 record in all decisive games against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and it looked at the start that maybe Wesley would be on pace to at least remaining perfect, if not even making it a 6-0 score. But instead, Jan Nepomniachtchi rallied as black and eventually came back to win. Magnus Carlsen is now facing off against Wesley So that'll also be a matchup that we'll keep our eye on, even though right now we wouldn't pick either of those 2 guys to really maintain themselves as a potential winner of the event. But anything can happen. We have 2 more rounds, and mathematically neither Carlsen nor So have been eliminated. Nakamura and Giri, that's another interesting one. Fan favorites there here in the Chess.com community. Hikaru with the white pieces, right? Expecting him to push a little bit against Anish today.
Yeah, and they're battling it out to see who which of them is your favorite co-commentator, because they recently have experienced the blessing that is Danny Rensch commentary. Unfortunately for Giri, he has a tough record against Nakamura, but that's also because he's a few years younger. So I didn't really dive deeply into their head-to-head history. I know Naka has a plus score against him, but that 6-year difference in age really plays a part when you think about their earlier competitions.
When you said unfortunately, I thought you were about to say unfortunately both have been playing much worse chess since joining you for our commentary, Danny, but we won't go into that. Obviously, Vachier-Lagrave hasn't been playing his best chess either since barely getting by against me in the World Bullet Giant Chess Championship. Sergei Karyakin also continues to be sneaky good, along with Vishy Anand, who I wouldn't say it's been so sneaky. It's been it's been downright dominant. I'm only disappointed because we didn't really leave yesterday's broadcast with a confident understanding of why Vishy didn't push for a win against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. But either way, those two guys with 5 points each, they're only half a point behind the leaders. So don't turn your back on that Karyakin Anand matchup, because if we do have a decisive game there, either one of those guys might get back in the thick of things, right? In terms of potentially tying, maybe giving us tie breaks on a Thursday. Finally, we've got Mamedyarov and Caruana. Shakhriyar hasn't had his best chess here in the Sinquefield Cup, but Fabiano, after losing the game to Dingley Ren, going to be eager to strike back, right? He gets black for the second time in a row there against Mamedyarov, and we'll see if that plays into things as far as how much he can push for a win. Those are our ratings as we currently have it, the live standings. So we see Magnus Carlsen still dropping points, I would say, which again happens when you're 28-82, Robert. But Jan Nepomniachtchi, currently number 4 in the world in the live rankings, as his great event in St. Louis continues. He's chasing Dingley Ren, his co-tournament leader there in number 3 spot.
Yeah, but Dingley Ren is so close to Fabiano Caruana there, and I think that's the most intrigue that I have with this round is, will Dingley Ren pass Fabiano Caruana in the live ratings? Now, to be frank, it doesn't matter. And why do I say it doesn't matter? One, they're so far behind Magnus Carlsen. And two, Fabiano Caruana is already qualified for the candidates by virtue of losing the 2018 World Championship match. Dingley Ren has pretty much already locked up the rating spot for the candidates. So whether or not one of them is number 2 in the world versus number 3, I don't think it matters too much, because they will be facing each other, and the main competitors in the candidates that will take place next year.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually, because the only other player besides Dingley Ren that has kind of clinched his spot is Fabiano Caruana by virtue of being the previous challenger, right? You said Dingley Ren hasn't officially clinched it on rating, but it looks like he will. So if we were to sit here and say who are the 2 players we for sure know are going to be in the candidates come March competing for a chance to play for the world title, that would be Dingley Ren and Fabiano Caruana. So we also know that we're going to be seeing the moves take off here in T-minus about 3 minutes, so we're going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, action from round 10 of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup. Don't go anywhere. And we are back here. It's game time for the 2019 Sinquefield Cup. Round 10, only 2 more rounds remain. So if you were looking for a photo finish, we might have one in store right now. 2 of the players who are leading the way, Dingley Ren and Jan Nepomniachtchi, will have exciting games, exciting opponents here, especially the one that I've got right in front of us. Robert, you highlighted Jan Nepomniachtchi was 0-5 in decisive games against Wesley So. Didn't stop him from winning as black yesterday. He doesn't have a great record against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave in Classical either, but again, now he's got the white pieces. So I'm looking for things to continue to roll his way.
He's also just kind of blazing the trail. He's moving so quickly and confidently. I wouldn't say he was moving confidently at the start of the game yesterday, but once Wesley missed the mark and lost his advantage, then all of a sudden Jan was saying, you know what, I might not just beat him over the board, but with the clock as my ally, together we can team up and have Wesley get into trouble, and that's exactly what happened.
Well, you referenced it enough that I think it's time for us to just bring up the daily question that so many people probably saw while we were at break, and let's dive right into it. As the game starts, we have our first opportunity, our first call to action for you to join us on social media today. The fast-playing Nepomniachtchi currently leads the field. Is practicing good time management still an important part in classical chess? Now, what we were referring to, I guess, in terms of good time management, it would be, I guess, the lessons of discipline that coaches or guys like Robert and I heard from our coaches, slowing down when you sense a critical moment, making sure that you really use your opportunity before considering big exchanges. There are all kinds of ways that we would normally kind of build the muscles of discipline and say, hey, even if I think I know the answer, I need to take a breath and slow down. But Nepomniachtchi doesn't ever seem to do that. And yet it doesn't seem to make that big of a difference, I guess, in terms of his chess. And maybe you could argue he plays even better as he plays faster. So I think there's a lot of different angles to discuss on this, especially as we try to keep our shows educationally oriented and giving advice where possible for the viewers. So I can't wait to hear what Robert has to say on this. And we'll dive into this throughout the day. But get involved. Use the hashtag Grand Chess Tour. I see some of you in the chat. I know you're active on social media, so you can't not tweet about it, Mr. Dodgy Chess. Don't even think about it. If I don't see a tweet from you today, big trouble. Shout out to the Chess TV chat. We see lots of members there hanging out. We already had some emotes being spammed there, which I'm not going to lie, got a little creepy there looking at my own smiling face way too many times in the Chess TV chat. But you know what's not creepy? This awesome view here of all 6 games. I'm enjoying the view, sipping on some Joe. Not exactly sure where we're going to go yet.
Good rhyme, though.
Yep.
And I was going to say a name before, but I thought that you wouldn't know who I was talking about. So I was up pretty late last night watching the U.S. Open, tennis, that is. And Sumit Nagal, he gave Federer all he could handle.
Yep.
And I was thinking about this a lot while watching the match, and I just really wish that there were more. We talk about the round-robin format of the Sinquefield Cup and these elite events. Like, nobody knew who Sumit Nagal was, and he took the first set off Federer yesterday.
Yep.
And it just reminded me of chess so much, where some of these top, very great players who are not quite in the elite can knock off some of the top seeds. Of course, Federer eventually won the match, but it still was great to see. And I don't know, I just had it on my brain, so I had to say it, and now I'm done.
Well, that was kind of referring to previous daily questions about what to do with these incredibly busy schedules and how to maybe create more excitement and less draws at the high levels of the game. Well, one way is to mix it up a little bit more and get some of these young talents who, like you said, I mean, Nagal clearly represented a bit of a stylistic matchup problem for Federer. Believe it or not, I also watched that match. I know. And first, because when I first read it, I thought it was Nadal, and I was like, why are they playing each other in the first round? And then I realized I misread it because I quickly. Anyway, so I watched. But Nagal clearly had a stylistic matchup problem, and that's something that I think can also happen in chess, where just because someone's 2,700, it doesn't mean they may not represent something tricky to a particular person who's 2,800 because of opening repertoire choices, because of just their, like we said, their stylistic approach to critical moments. So I'm with you, and obviously the better player still won. I'm a big Roger fan, but it was exciting. All right, well, speaking of excitement here, we've got an interesting English opening that almost looks like a reverse Sveshnikov to the Batcave for the first time. Robert, let's do it. What in the world happened here? When I say reverse Sveshnikov, let me just highlight that. So E4, c5. This is a Sicilian. And in fact, the Sveshnikov, while it doesn't occur as often as possible because so many people when facing knight c6 play the Rossolimo these days against, let's say, Magnus Carlsen, the main line that will occur if white plays d4 more often than not is actually a Sveshnikov, where black brings 2 knights out and then e5. We saw this a couple times at the World Chess Championship in November 2018. And the idea in this structure is while black is giving up some dominance of the central squares and potentially even a very, very weak outpost square down the road, black is getting an aggressive lead in development, and there is even a line in the Sveshnikov that occurs with bishop b4. Believe it or not, meeting knight d6 with king e7 sometimes is even possible. So if you're looking at a weird position where black is sort of sacrificing what seems to be some classical principles for the very aggressive opportunity to attack the center, you've got the pin on the knight, and we'll call it some dynamic features compensating for normally positional weaknesses like weak squares and a weak king. But eventually black gets compensation. As I look at this structure, if I was flipping the board, it would look almost very similar, right? A reverse sort of Sveshnikov, but white is kind of up a tempo here with this move coming with check, Robert. That means that white's going to get the king out of dodge very quickly here, and I'm already anxious to see what happens here. So your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually interested to know why Maxime is thinking so much, because while this may not be the most common variation, it does feel like just blocking the check with the knight on b8 makes the most sense to me, because you develop the knight, and it may look like the knights are stepping on each other's toes, but with the problems that you highlighted, in particular the d3 square, that means that you can't normally play a3 to say, where's your knight on b4 going? But the answer is pretty clear in this position. It's going into d3 with check.
But I'm going to challenge that and say, not because I don't agree, but I'm I'm really wondering, can white go full reverse sort of Kalishnikov, Sveshnikov hybrid here? This would be quite a funny way to play the position, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an impossibility for white, but I do feel like knight 8 to c6 doesn't have a drawback that you might see in some other variations where knights are stepping on each other's toes. And so you're right, that king on e2, it's known to be quite safe for white, and essentially some of the long-term issues that you discussed in the Sveshnikov and Kalashnikov openings, you don't really have that because white will quickly try to push this d pawn and not have a backward pawn.
And we may see that today, obviously, as we come back to the live position. Anything can still happen. We've got all 6 games still rolling here. I see an Italian between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So. And it's not Fabiano Caruana. LOL. Oh my God, I just thought of that.
And I love how proud of yourself you were.
Because I said I see a little Italian between So and Magnus, and it's not just Fabiano.
I know, that was good. I approved of the joke. I got it. I understood it. Don't worry.
I know it ruins it when I explain my jokes. You know, ChessBay's been telling me that for years. Shout out to ChessBay hanging on the Chess TV chat along with Twitch.
You know, it's not a joke though.
What's a joke?
As we see all the boards in play right now, the preparation done by Mamedyarov and Caruana, as well as Aronian and Dingley Ren, because both of those are in very topical lines with some deep analysis and very complex positions.
Well, where you want to go first? Because as you said, both are already knee-deep in theory, and we're going to see some impressive prep potentially. I say we go to the Aronian Dingley Ren game, mainly because it's one with a tournament leader playing with the black pieces here. And all right, well, let's analyze it. Let's back up and take a look at how we got to this sort of unique position with double D pawns and a bishop pair on the board for black. So we had again, traditional sort of, not necessarily Italian, as the move knight g5 was played right away. This has become a 2 knights or a fried liver if you're into gross meals. You know, I'm not even sure. Oh, and look, he actually goes for the straight-up lolly attack with d5. E takes, and now knight a5. The lolly attack would be something that occurs if knight takes d5 here as black, followed by knight takes f7, and then queen f3 check, and things get wild. So this is one of those openings that every young chess player learns from their coach as a early way to impart the fact that the initiative can be a long-lasting thing, because even if white doesn't win back the piece right away, let's say black plays knight e7, white can castle, play d4, try to continue to open up lines, and this king struggles for safety for the rest of the game. But fun fact, I believe the most recent theory is that black is okay in those lines. Anyway, don't ask me, I'm not the grandmaster, but that would have been fun. Unfortunately, we see the more sound knight a5, right, Robert?
Yeah, that's definitely a theory that these grandmasters are not studying because, one, it happens so rarely, and two, it just is like ridiculous attack, and it feels much easier to play for white as your king is just in the center and in deep trouble. But this line in particular gives black a lot of play, because if we go forward for the next few moves, it's all theoretical. Bishop e5 check. You have to block the pawn. And now this may seem like a bad decision because white is up a pawn, and you're
giving another.
Exactly. You're saying d takes c6, b takes c6, and then you look at the pawn structure. It's like, wait, white has 7 pawns and black has 6. But if you look at the rapid development that black gets and has gotten in the game after the series of moves here, you bring your knight forward for black, and that way you're attacking the knight on g5. And as you see in the game, that knight is going to f4, where it attacks this bishop on d3 and the pawn on g2. So it's saying that I'm going to get very rapid compensation for your extra pawn. And it looks like once I take on d3, and as you mentioned, these really ugly, doubled, isolated queen pawns, but it's still an extra pawn. So if you corral one of them and get it back, you could be in trouble of simply being down a pawn for the time being, especially if white can get the move d3 to d4 in a useful way. Then it's like, well, now I am trading off my extra, one of my double pawns, which is an extra pawn, for a nice central pawn.
I mean, you highlighted it well. As we look at the live position, I think that there's a number of instructive themes here, to be honest. I think you're going to have the balance of the initiative and the bishop pair for black, while white desperately tries to catch up in development and maybe rid himself of these weaknesses, as you talked about, on the D file before it's too late. So the question is, how does black get the initiative, right? This isn't a traditional open position where the bishop pair is dominant, but it is a position where white can't have long-term things to solve. Like the bishop coming to g4 is going to be a really irritating pin for the rest of the game. The fact that white also has to worry sometimes about kingside attacks if black plays for f5 and eventually e4. I guess inherently in my voice, I didn't even know I was. I feel a bias to these positions as black. I just feel like black tends to get the long-term kind of compensation that you want. So maybe I'm biased to that fact and don't really believe in advocating things like the fried liver attack with knight g5 on move 2, the chess principalist in me. Yep. But okay, we'll see if Levon has something in store that shows why white is just fine in these positions. So. Okay, c5, that's another way to use the bishop pair, right? Is put them together on these long diagonals, especially given that the light square bishop, if we're comparing bishops on the board, is really the key to black's position. The fact that it doesn't have a challenger on white's side, that means on a6 it won't really be challenged, on b7 it can't really be challenged, or even, as I said, going back to g4, still a possibility, because c5 has another purpose, not just opening the diagonal for the bishop, it actually opens up the c6 square for the knight to retreat, which is kind of key, because in some of these lines with the bishop on g4 pinning the knight, you might actually see the knight relocate from c6 to d4.
Because that knight I was going to mention is the worst piece in black's position, right? It's on the side of the board. It's not really doing anything. But the downside of playing a move like c5 makes it a more vulnerable pawn. Yeah. Because white can play a move like knight e4, which looks like a move that you'd want to play anyway at some point, but then you're also attacking this pawn on c5. So it is sort of a mixed bag of a decision there. But is black really that concerned if white takes this bishop on d6 with that knight on c3? The answer is not really, because of the opposite colored bishop scenario. Not to mention that anytime you put this knight on e4, you might encourage me to play the move pawn f7 to f5, which, yes, makes it easier for white to attack the e5 square, but if black can do it in a timely manner, you get a very quick initiative with a pawn storm on the king side. Yeah. So this is going to be a fun one. Again, and sometimes fun ones lead to really accurate and precise play and still a peaceful result. But I don't think that should take away from the fact that this is a fun opening, a unique one that we don't always see played at the highest levels. I believe one of the last times I saw it played, am I going full Hikaru Nakamura reference, U.S. Championship, back when Robert Hess used to play in the U.S. Championship? 2009 against Josh Friedel. Am I doing that? Did you just pull that one?
Did I
out
just
of
do
your,
that? Oh,
your
did
wealth
he?
of knowledge?
Did he? Wealth of knowledge.
I
All
feel
right.
like a richer man just hearing your wealth of knowledge.
Look at this one. Mamajarov and Caruana is getting spicy. We've already got G5 on the board, and he might have even meant to play it. You know?
This is a highly theoretical line that I will not pretend to know, but I do know that Mamajarov worked with Alexei Dreyev at the candidates. So when I see D4 openings and I
Yep.
see sharp lines like this, I think, okay, what does Dreyev have in store for me? I also think of the American player Conrad Holt, because I have seen him play in this variation several times. And while I may not know the exact move by move theory here, the general purpose of playing this way is if you look at the center right now.
Well, yeah, let's back up and look. Go ahead.
Sorry, I say in the current position, white's just dominating the center.
Right.
But black has played this move G5, which weakens the king side, but also attacks this bishop on F4. So you're trying to counter white's control of the center with attacking specific pieces, but it's just a total mess. I mean,
And when the bishop moves, the E5 pawn hangs. I actually do know these positions from my own repertoire. In fact, have played as black against Conrad Holt in these lines more than once. These lines with the Queen C2 classical and then E4 are, as you said, not always featured at the highest levels of play because they are naturally so very double-edged. But that makes me excited about what we're going to see today. You can already look at the live position and say, "What? Right? What's going on?" And that makes you realize there's going to be some weirdness. So again, one of the main points of the Queen C2 classical is you are willingly wasting time with the queen, but in theory trying to avoid the double pawns that typically come when the bishop comes here and the capture occurs. But that's what makes the E4 line so unique, is white is actually saying, well, now I'm actually going to use that queen for a different purpose and really go big or go home in the center here. There are a number of dynamic ways to challenge this, but black plays the most principled with D5 and then the knight coming into E4. If I looked at my own games in this database, I feel like I should now. You complimented my memory, for that was your first mistake, because now I'm literally going to forget what happened when I played that game against Conrad. C5, knight F3. So typically, actually, the theoretically most popular move here is I think A3 first. But after knight F3 takes, knight D7, this is all normal stuff. White can also castle here. But the move bishop F4, queen H4. Now we're already in a line that I actually don't know. I feel like this is probably evolving theory based on the last time that yours truly was a real chess player, which is many years ago. So I'm not going to pretend anymore to know what's going on in this position.
Yeah, and I think because we don't know the theory, we can still talk about the overall themes here. And for instance, well, can't black just in the live position as we continue here? I mean, they know what they're doing. These players know what they're doing. They're moving quickly. They're both very well prepared. But in the live board, the question I'm having is, does black want to take this bishop on F4, right? I went G5 to attack it. And now that you took my pawn on D5, can I get away with taking your bishop on F4?
Yeah, so the key lines occur if you take F4, white takes the knight with... Honestly, it could be either piece, right? It could be the knight or the bishop. Instinctively, I feel like the knight takes is better because of the threats that might be coming over to black's king side. So I'm going to guess that probably black is calculating other ways to do that as well. Sometimes you can take here first and then take.
But if you take with a knight at C3 and white takes with a pawn back, then your bishop is under attack.
Yep.
And maybe there's some D takes E6 intermezzo's and
These are the kind of variations that occur in these lines on a regular, and it's just completely, it's crisscross applesauce, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually do know what you're saying, funnily enough. Do me a favor, Danny. Danny?
What's that?
You got to finish the rhyme.
Oh, crisscross applesauce?
Do me a favor, get lost?
Do me a favor, get lost. I didn't even know that was the rhyme. So you knew. I should know that. I'm the one with kids, but I had no idea.
I shaved today, so I got so much younger.
You do. You look about 12, and I didn't want to bring it up, but that's a good thing. So not all of us look as young when we shave, but look at you. Baby blues. Well, we've got a lot of action ahead here. Let's bring back our 6-board view and remind everybody this is an opportunity if you're ever unhappy with the game we're covering, you can go to chess.com/events, chess.com/live, follow the games yourself, and maybe even let us know in chat if you think that there's an interesting thing happening in one of those games and you'd like to bring our attention to it. We appreciate that. As I look at these games, I feel like we already kind of chose right. The game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and MVL is going to be one of the more exciting ones, and the game that we were just on between Mamad Yarov and Fabiano Caruana also going to keep us intrigued. And the Dingley Ren one, we don't get to see a fried liver craziness position very often. So I mean, those three games to me already gonna have our attention for the rest of the day. Not to take anything away from another struggle in the Italian. Theoretically, this is something we continue to see at the high levels these days. Magnus Carlsen with the white pieces here against Wesley. So if we bring over to another one we haven't looked at, we've got Hikaru Nakamura versus Anish Giri. Very traditional looking Queen's Gambit declined. Rogozin variation, if you're really keeping score at home. And finally, the only other game we haven't touched on is an important one. Sergei Karyakin, Vishy Anand. Both of these guys are only a half a point behind the leaders. So not out of the realm that if a decisive game occurs there, Vishy or Sergei could jump back in it. So there you go. You see those two paired off, tied for third place currently. Dingley Ren and Jan Nepomniachtchi, as we said, tied atop the standings with 5.5 points apiece. So exciting stuff. Robert, any of those games catch your fancy you want to jump to?
Well, I was going to mention this Karyakin on game that you have on screen right now. That is reminiscent, I'm not sure if it's the exact same move order, of Caruana Nakamura from the GCT finals last year in London. They had a game in this variation, which Nakamura ended up winning, but from a much inferior position. But it was a very instructive game, and I'm not positive it's this exact move sequence just yet, but this does certainly ring a bell.
Well, let's back up and take a look at it then. I mean, the opening you mentioned and that game, obviously Hikaru Nakamura hasn't had as good of a Grand Chess Tour as he did last year, but for those of you who maybe didn't follow it as closely, especially given that Chess.com wasn't covering it as closely as we are now, Hikaru won the Grand Chess Tour last year. So it was a great year for him, and a big win in London, as you said, over Fabiano Caruana. So let's talk about where this game deviated. We have Bishop E7. This is very traditional stuff. Bishop F4. Now, after B6, this is traditionally referred to as a Tartakower type of Queen's Gambit declined. Doesn't look like Chess.com's ECO refers to it as such. Calls it a Horowitz Fianchetto defense. Fantastic, right? But the idea of putting the bishop on this diagonal is pretty common and useful for black in these structures, because in a position where eventually the tension will break on d5, whether that's white takes or black takes, it's kind of inevitable. And when it does happen, having the bishop on this diagonal is typically very useful. Also, by pressuring f3, you've got ideas like c5 that can be supported. Another reason why you play the move b6 to support that thrust. So this is a very, very common way to play the positions. Bishop e2, and now the bishop goes a6 though. So this is not as traditional of a development, but you're saying this is the same line that we had in the match between Nakamura and Caruana.
Well, the difference is I just looked it up, and I thought it looked a little bit different. Was the bishop was on d3 rather than on e2.
Aha. And bishop a6 was still played though.
Yeah, so essentially the same lines. Actually, we should put that side by side. So bishop a6.
Okay.
Pawn d5, knight takes, queen takes in the center. And then after bishop takes c7, queen a5 check, king f1.
Aha.
So that was, it looks very similar to
almost completely similar, right?
The difference is in the game continuation, the bishop was on e2, and so that I guess there's a difference in terms of the queen placement going to e2 rather than potentially on d3.
Right. Interesting. I wonder what the subtle improvement might be from Karyakin's perspective. Black's play seems to be straightforward regardless. If you look at the live position, Anand is down a pawn. As we look at the analysis board, the comparison to the game between Nakamura and Caruana, black is also down a pawn, but similar compensation, right? The king is still in the center, and white is going to try to fix that issue before black gets some other type of pressure. I don't know. So it's one of those things where I don't really understand the subtle differences, right?
Yeah, and I guess what Vichy is aiming for is he's saying, I'm going to put a rook on c8, take control of the open file. Your extra pawn is this pawn on d4, which can't move yet. And what are you going to do about your king? Because your king is blocking your rook on h1 from getting into the game.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ever play a move like g3, watch out, because I know you want to get your king to g2, but your bishop on c7 lacks retreating squares.
That's a really advanced point there, right? So it's one of those things that makes you have to worry about the safety of the bishop while also trying to improve the position of the king. And the subtle differences are super advanced here. Again, we've been referring to the shuffling that's going on here in comparing Karyak and Anand right now at the Sinquefield Cup to the game from last year's Grand Chess Tour finals between Nakamura and Caruana. But the subtlety is real, and in the words of Colonel Sanders, I'm too drunk to chase this chicken, right? So I don't get it. A little bit too advanced for my blood, Robert. Let's bring back the six-board view and find a position that this Colonel Sanders can handle.
You're Colonel Danders. Can't believe you just quoted Colonel Sanders. And you're a hilarious man. I do think, in general, the Nepo game against Maxime will deserve a lot of attention from us.
Yep.
And not just because Nepo is the leader, but because he has sacrificed a pawn for the very quick development of his pieces. Maxime's king is stuck in the center. So it's very clear that Nepo is going for a direct approach in this game, not holding back. He's just saying, I don't care about the material so much as how my king is positioned, how my pieces gain activity, and, well, the king on d8 doesn't look very good.
Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one, and I love it because Nepomniachtchi, being the leader in the tournament, wants to capitalize on his chances with the white pieces, right? You got to respect that, because if you make a comparison to the position with Dingley, Ren, Levon, Aronian, not to say that's not also a double-edged position that offers Ding chances. The fact is that winning with black is probably much less likely for Dingley Ren than it is for Jan Nepomniachtchi to have winning chances as white. But you can only get winning chances if you're willing to be aggressive and go for it. And I'm appreciative of this opportunity that he's going to give us here to cover an exciting game.
Yeah, and look at the bishop on f8. That's a real problem for Maxime. When we talk about sacrifices, in this particular case, it's one pawn, but we also need to figure out how to develop our pieces. White's pieces are perfectly developed, right? Knight on f3 is doing a great job. This bishop on c4 on an open diagonal, the bishop on b2. It doesn't have an open diagonal just yet, but it is preventing black from developing that bishop on f8. Yep. And the rook on a1 is staring at this a7 pawn. Well, that a7 pawn's an extra pawn, but it's also one that black is tied down to. So with the idea of castle, rook to d1 looming, things like that, it's not easy to see how black coordinates and develops because this bishop on f8 is stuck behind its own pawns.
Yeah, this is a seriously sharp moment, and if you're talking about the standings and what that would do if Jan Nepomniachtchi actually won here, it would practically clinch a first place finish, right? I mean, not really, not in terms of the math, but close to it. Especially if he managed to increase an advantage over Dingley Ren if he wasn't able to win. So I love the aggressive approach. Let's analyze this position though and see if we were MVL, how do you get out of it, right? We were talking about the position first back here when we talked about the fact that this was kind of a reverse sort of Sveshnikov. White immediately strikes with d4, not going to allow the pressure that comes in the center here, normally in this structure. So he plays d4, and after takes a3, I feel like we were really... This was already showing signs. We had left the game here, but this was probably showing signs, if we were on it, of something that had been cooked up in the kitchen, right? You can smell dinner here.
Yeah, we should show why knight takes d4 instead of a3 wasn't possible, because queen takes d4. Queen takes 4. It's not about the knight on c6, because that knight is pinned to the king. But this knight on b4 can go to Fork City, USA, and say knight c2 check with a royal fork.
That's right. Have you ever been to Fork City, USA?
Actually, I guess it's a royal fork, and we don't have a monarch here, so it's really Fork City.
Hey, the reference
UK.
Killed it. Don't ever apologize for for that. No, you're right. No, that's actually a really instructive point, because I think the first thought is, wait, why didn't he go for this? Because the knight is pinned, right? But as we said, the fork on c2 would keep things happy for black. That's why after captures d4, Nepomniachtchi plays a3. But as we said, if we were on this position, we would have said, okay, this smells like something Nepomniachtchi cooked up at home. Look at his time. He still has used almost nothing, and he's in a great spot. So after takes c3, takes d8, the king takes, and then you win your piece back. This starts to look very romantic-ish, right, in terms of like an e4 opening where white has sacrificed a whole lot on the queen side for an aggressive lead development. Not something you would say occurred out of an English opening, right, if you know that knight f3 and c4 were the first two moves for white. But indeed it did. It came from the English opening, and now Maxime plays the move e6, answering, I guess, what we were curious about as to how he would try to deal with his bad development with that bishop on f8 being blocked. He says, you know what? I'm willing to sacrifice my f6 pawn in exchange to get this guy out. But I don't think he's seen the last of white's initiative getting crazy here.
Well, so e takes f6 is kind of the obvious reply, since black's giving up this pawn and can't take back very easily. Because after e takes f6, if you take back with your pawn, my bishop will join the party on f6 with a check to your king on d8 and hitting your rook on h8.
That's right. But if you take f6, he's going to take here on b4 with check, right?
Right.
And after the king moves, I'm guessing something like g6.
No. I think you have to take and give up the exchange, is my guess, because the problem is if you play g6, this is actually a very critical moment, right?
Okay, let's keep analyzing this then, because I thought g6 could be played and f7, rook f8.
Right.
As crazy as that looks, I'm still up. What am I up? I'm up a pawn, I guess, and if I win this, I'll still be up 2 pawns. And if not, I didn't know that I had to sack the exchange. So you feel very confident this is needed.
And the reason why is because if you play g6, I'm not going to touch that f-pawn, because the f-pawn is actually extremely valuable where it is on f6. So if you play g6, I'm going to make some coordinating moves first, like maybe rook h to d1.
Yeah, threatening bishop takes e6.
And if you go king e8, now I'm definitely going f7 because I'm winning the house. As your rook on h8's hanging, your bishop on d7's hanging, everything's sort of hanging here. And you're under a pin on the d file after rook d1. If you go over to the c file, I feel like some kind of knight e5 is coming. I don't even know exactly what, but it feels very risky for black here.
It does. But again, the extra material that MVL has might justify trying to go for sharp lines like this, because you're up enough pawns that you might try to do it. I agree with you. Leaving the pawn on f6 almost feels worse than giving up the rook. And as B. Handelman says in the Chess TV chat, he's probably right, I guess. The point is giving up the exchange and keeping the bishop pair might be better for black anyway. I guess that's kind of your point. But I would argue this position definitely makes it easier for white to have winning chances, because with the smoke clearing and the material advantage, somehow I just don't buy that these 2 pawns give enough compensation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think it's enough compensation, but I think the reason why he played e6 was he was worried about the bind and having that bishop just entombed on the f8 square. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to make the best out of a bad situation and get my bishop out, get full development, and make Jan prove that he can win up this exchange rather than just allowing him the easy play of the bind.
Speaking of proving it, maybe he's got something else in mind too. I'm starting to think that, is there a way that he just punts on the whole idea and says, I'm actually going to get more aggressive with the development right away? I guess we're going to get similar kinds of situations where maybe the best thing in the end is just to take f6 anyway. And if that's the case, then for sure you probably want to take right now while there's still the chance of that fork occurring on f6. But all right, this is an exciting one. I can't wait. Yeah, and there's our solid definition of the term fork. We refer to it a lot. And generally use the term fork when you're talking about what a knight and pawn are capable of doing as far as a double attack. But semantics notwithstanding, when you take on f6 and take, this, I would argue that this looks about as much like a fork visually as almost anything, maybe like a trident, right?
Yeah.
But even though the chess gods for some reason decided that it's only a fork when it's a knight and a pawn, take that, right? But it's a double attack, and it is a fork, and it's when you attack two pieces at once. So, all right. Well, fun stuff. I want to do another call to action about our daily question because we're still on Jan Nepomniachtchi's game, and as I look at the clock and already see a 20-minute time advantage, I can't help but remind everybody you can get involved on Twitter. Use the hashtag Grand Chess Tour. Directly interact with the Chess.com official account. Usually we do it in poll form, so you can just cast your vote. You can also hold your mouse right now over the Twitch extension. I'm going to go do it, Robert. I'm going to do it right now, yeah? I'm going to do it
as well.
Holding my mouse over the Twitch extension, yeah? And I click it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, right. What's I got here? Actually, I think we still have the daily question from yesterday. No? We do, right. Okay, we're going to fix that right away. But okay. Soon, you'll be able to answer today's daily question over the Twitch extension. So you can still cast your vote and answer if you haven't voted yet on who you think is going to win the Sinquefield Cup. Now that we're getting closer to the finish line, if you vote now, you're going to sound really smart. You're going to be like, when I voted for the Twitch extension, I voted for Jan Nepomniachtchi, right? Because in round 10, he had 5.5 points. But yeah, anyway. Get involved on social media. Give us your answers to the daily question and have some fun there. So, Nepomniachtchi already with a 20-minute time advantage. That's why we're asking it. What would you say, Robert? Give us a little bit of a teaser. Don't give me the full Robert, the full Monty, but give me a little bit of what would be your advice as a coach to students right now on time management. As if your student comes to you and says, "Hey, Robert, I don't need to listen to you, because Jan Nepomniachtchi plays super fast, and he wins the Sinquefield Cup. So why should I slow down? Also, I don't know why I sound like Tally, but I love you as my coach, Robert." It's in the extension now. Hold your mouse over Twitch and you can vote. Thank you for that distraction.
I love how you just went there and we're just,
So as a coach, I'm your student right now, Robert. How are you going to answer the question of me disrespecting your advice, saying I don't need to slow down?
Well, it's a tough question because especially with the way it's phrased, and I know you're going to be like, oh, you're nitpicking. Of course you would do that.
Right.
But good time management, I think, is a relative term, right? What is good time management? To different people, it means different things. Some people are very well prepared in the opening, so they want to just blitz out the opening as fast as possible to conserve their time for later in the game. Now, Jan just makes every single move very quickly, except that last move. He just castled. It took him a little while to make that move. I want to say like 8 minutes or so because he was moving instantly before that. So I think that you do need to have a solid opening repertoire so that you can play the, say, first 10 moves, first 8 moves very quickly. But of course, you're going to end up in a branch of the variation you don't know, that you haven't memorized. So that's where you have to simultaneously trust your intuition, but also really then rely on your calculation as well. So I do think that good time management is essential, of course, but it means different things to different types of players. Because who's going to tell Alexander Grishuk, hey, dude, you need to move faster when he's 2770, and I definitely am not.
And it's funny, right? I think you gave the best answer, and it's not because it's politically correct, but it is politically correct because the answer is that it kind of depends on the type of player, right? In a lot of ways, I would say that it doesn't mean, I would put it this way, and I think you would agree, Robert, just because you may play really fast as a player or really slow, neither one makes you immune to criticism, right? Because put it this way, like, yes, Nepomniachtchi is leading the tournament, but his only loss came in what fashion? Playing way too quickly and blundering a position he had no business losing. And if he had taken even 30 seconds more, he doesn't lose that game to Vishy Anand. So playing fast or not, it doesn't mean you can't make mistakes by playing too fast. Alexander Grishuk, as great a blitz player he is, a former World Blitz champion, big fan favorite on Chess.com, and everyone knows he's a great blitz player. When he gets himself under time pressure, is it a recipe for success? No. Right? No, it doesn't matter how good you are at blitz. So I agree, but I would argue that there's still management skills you need to develop as a chess player. Whether you see the best players when we're playing super fast, I guess I'm now putting on my coach tone talking to students out there. Just because you see someone playing super fast, that doesn't mean you have to emulate them totally, nor does it mean that getting under time pressure is any kind of badge of honor because you say, well, I take my time. If you lose the game, you lose the game regardless, right? And I've seen just as many players who play way too slowly consistently getting themselves in tough spots and then wonder why they blunder, right? So it's a very interesting balance, and obviously I'd love to hear what people think about this one. Give us your thoughts. If you're somebody who actively has a coach, if you're an aspiring chess player looking to get better, maybe you're a chess coach yourself watching the show and you want to use social media to have your Twitter account be heard here on the show, do it. Get involved. Do it. Go then. Tweet then. Go then. Gone then. Tweeted.
I know.
Go then. Tweet.
I know some coaches who tell their students that they're not allowed to spend more than 10 minutes on a move. But that feels, I understand the principle behind it. It's like, don't just sit and think forever because you won't have time as the game continues to get complex. But I don't like those kind of hard boundaries. It feels way too rigid, and you need some flexibility in chess.
100% agreed. Also want to bring back our six-board view and make a decision here as we wait for Nepomniachtchi to tell us how he wants to deal with the threat of the f8 bishop activating. We're going to take a bird's eye view of all 6 games in progress and decide where we want to take our position. See, Nepomniachtchi, you're not the only one who can take time. Look, he did. He actually took 8 minutes. Right as we talk about it, he castled. LOL.
Right.
It was funny because I had a sense, Robert, that the other way to deal with this tension was to kind of to punt on it and quickly go for rapid development. But now let's analyze it because I suggested this, and I thought bishop takes b4, rook f to d1, king to c7, and I didn't understand why this would be an improvement. I came back to agreeing with you that taking f6 seemed more accurate. So what do you think he sees here? Is it something that's not rook f d1? Maybe I'm making an assumption too quick. Is there another move here that he would play on bishop takes b4?
I think he'll take on f6 still. And he's saying that I want my king castled instead of in the center if I am going to win this exchange. But the good question that you posed earlier, Danny, is if you were going to go down this line anyway, you said white should probably force it. Because if you go to the live position, right, we have a choice now for black. Mm-hmm. Do I want to take on b4 or do I want to play bishop e7? I know bishop e7 is a passive decision, but it does defend that pawn f6. It also develops the bishop. But then the question still is, what is your king going to do in this position? Your king is stuck on the back rank. Your rooks are not connected. There are going to be pins in the d file. Maybe your king will go to e8, but doesn't feel that safe there either. So it's a very tricky moment for Maxime, especially when he realizes he's facing computer preparation.
Well, and I think one of the biggest points, as you said, is, the bishop on e7 may defend this, but if you leave the b pawn on the board, now I would probably argue that hiding on the c file is not even an option anymore because that knight can be kicked and you're probably getting in big trouble, right? So it's one of those tough decisions where do you take b4 knowing that all hell will break loose over here on the king side as a consequence, or do you try to play defense, bishop e7, and maybe try to run the king over here, right? I guess in an ideal world, white doesn't get any kind of initiative, and eventually you defend and find safety. Something tells me that it's not going to be that easy for black, but okay, that is sort of a goal position if we're trying to find a plan. So, all right, this one remains one of the most exciting ones we have on the docket. We haven't actually checked in yet with some of the other games as we see Nepomniachtchi get castled here. Good reminder there to our viewers who are maybe just starting their chess careers of what exactly castling is all about. Let's go to Magnus Carlsen's position where both sides have already castled, so good principles to follow, right? Even the best chess players follow them from time to time. What just happened here? d4, we have a d takes c5 on the board. This is no longer a traditional Italian, Dorothy.
I looked at the position as well, and I also was like, wait a second, what is going on here? Because white's position looks pretty normal since there's a knight on d2, knight on f3, rook on e1. I get that. But I see a knight on b5 that's under attack, and there's the clear d4 took a bishop on c5. Mm-hmm. So it just looks really strange. And now we have opposite colored bishops through very odd means. Yeah,
black's going to have to move the knight before taking back, because then you'd be down a piece. That's the most irritating part of So's position, I think, because if I'm looking at it, Robert, I see no other move besides knight a7.
Yep.
Right? And, okay, I mean, maybe that's not the end of the world, because if we keep analyzing, of course, he can continue to improve that knight long term. But maybe that's what Magnus has in store here, is some sort of way to pounce on the initiative temporarily right here, right now.
One really annoying thing is, let's say we take on d6 and you take back with the pawn on d6, right? Uh-huh. It's not that easy for black to play d5 because the e5 pawn always needs a guardian. And so in a position like this, what white ideally would get is some kind of c4, b3, bishop a3 perhaps, and you have a bind on the board, and it's very difficult for black to get activity. So this is probably what Magnus is going for, just saying, hey, Wesley, like, we have opposite colored bishops. That, in theory, is supposed to be, people always joke about opposite colored bishops, always a draw. But not when there's so many pieces left on the board and different trades exist in the position. So I do like White's chances, and I know there are a lot of arrows on that analysis board, but one idea that White will have, especially once you play c4 and then b3, is knight b1 to c3 to b5. Because once my knight gets to b5, I'm taking up space and pressuring your weak point.
Yeah, I love that. And even though it does seem a bit, in fact, Magnus has kind of already started a plan like this with b3 right away, which might even be a slight improvement on our idea, in that he kind of points out that maybe black doesn't even want to take c5 because e5 falls, and that would be a weird position where we have, in theory, a 4-on-3 for black and a 4-on-3 for white, but it's very easy to see whose 4-on-3 is better, right? Obviously white's, because these double pawns for black are just not that effective, whereas white has a traditional 4-on-3 pawn majority. That's a long-term advantage. So Magnus plays b3 right away, but I think he's playing for exactly the idea Robert's talking about, to take here, play c4 if indeed he can achieve it, and then have some sort of Maroczy bind structure. Maybe he actually played b3, Robert, because he thought that So might take with the queen, as strange as that looks. If he can get away with this to defend e5, then he's not forced into this structure with the bad pawn and the weak square. So by playing b3, why does that change things, everyone? Well, because now if you take d6, you actually force black to take with the pawn, because taking with the queen would allow the skewer, which wins the exchange. So interesting, Robert, right? I mean, maybe he played b3 with the exact idea of that, but trying to be a little more accurate in the move order.
Yeah, actually, it makes a lot of sense. And you also give your opponent a tough decision right in this moment, saying, well, you're kind of cramped. Your knight on a7 looks awkward. And if you go knight c6, as you just point out, they have very good variation, that I'm forcing you to take with the pawn on d6. And if you can't take on c5, there's probably no benefit for white to have taken on d6 right away. I really like this position for Magnus. I think he's slightly better with minimal to no risk. His pieces have more natural squares, and I just do not see how black is going to secure any sort of active counterplay in the position.
Yeah, this looks tough for So, who we know might even be reeling a little bit mentally after losing a position yesterday as white against Jan Nepomniachtchi, who up to that point in their career, Wesley So had never lost to Jan Nepomniachtchi, but that changed yesterday if somehow you missed that. So, not we don't want to imply too much storyline maybe where there isn't, but if you're talking about Wesley So, I think that he can sometimes be a little bit streaky at the high levels, Robert. I don't know if you agree with that. I think that he's one of those players where when he's going right, sometimes he just seems to be playing a very Magnus-ish brand of chess, but also he has the ability, I think, sometimes to slide when things aren't going his way. Would you say that's maybe a characteristic?
I completely agree with that, and when I think about it most directly, I think of the 2018 Candidates Tournament, where Fabiano Caruana beat Wesley So in round 1, then Wesley lost round 2 against Alexander Grishuk, and he just kind of made draws throughout the rest of the tournament. He won one game, ended up losing one more, so he ended up with a -2 score. But I think his just head wasn't really in it after those first 2 defeats. And I understand that. I'm not trying to blame the guy or criticize him too much, but in response to your question about streakiness, he's someone, when he is on form, he's taking people out. Like that game yesterday, an on-form Wesley So crushes Jan Nepomniachtchi from that position. And it's not even that Nepo's position was the worst position we've ever seen. It was just so up Wesley's alley and so dominant on all the important squares that he just makes that good position into a victory.
Right.
But right now he seems to be a bit off form. He's not showing the same prowess that he did in the Zagreb classical event. Maybe he's tired. I don't know. But he doesn't seem to be on his A game so far in the Sinquefield Cup.
Yeah, well, and there's only a couple rounds left, so as we say so far, running out of time, I guess, to right that ship. But as we said, there will be chess tomorrow, no matter what. August 28th is is round 11. And depending on how things shake out, we may or may not have tie breaks on Thursday. So if you've got one of those dentist appointments that you were looking to cancel anyway, just sit there with your fingers crossed that we get tie breaks for Thursday. Or go get your teeth cleaned, because you know what? It's super healthy to do, and you probably should. So, plus, if you're the kind of guy that would cancel your dentist appointment for a chess show, you've probably done that before, and then you might even really be needing this teeth cleaning. So, and you know what? As I really talk about this, I don't want you to cancel your dentist appointment.
I actually did, thanks to Sinquefield Cup. So, my dentist does not appreciate that.
But your teeth look great. Your teeth look great. I can say that. My producer has a brilliant smile. I'll tell you guys that. So. That's right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being with us, regardless of where you are. We've got about 4,500 of you here at twitch.tv/chess, chess.com TV, maybe even watching at chess.com/events or one of the home pages here on chess.com. If you are somehow catching our live coverage of the Sinquefield Cup for the first time, head over and give us a follow. We're nearing in on 150,000 followers. We're pretty excited. We haven't come up with a prize yet, Robert, for our 150,000 follower. I think at least a one-year Diamond membership, at least. Maybe even a private lesson with you?
Okay, maybe a private lesson with you. But it's, I was a little distracted because I saw a question in the chat, which I think is a reasonable one, but, it's kind of controversial in a way. So Griffin says, okay, this is a serious question. I'm not being cheeky. There is no question of Naka's speed chess ability, and I imagine most agree he is one of the best in the world. But is he really at the level of these other players in both ability and mental concentration? The easy answer to that question is yes. He is certainly, mental concentration, I don't know what that part of the question implies, but in terms of ability, it was a few years ago where Hikaru Nakamura was number 2 in the world. That was 2016. And he was rated over 2,800. And he has, when he's in form, the ability to beat all of these players. I do think that he had a very tough 2018 in classical chess. He did win the Grand Chess Tour, mainly due to his speed chess prowess. But in this year, he won the U.S. Chess Championship, which is not the same caliber event as the one we're dealing with right now. But players do go through slumps. Like Levon Aronian was 2830 and dropped to his current rating, which is, 2760 or
something terrible like that.
Yeah. And nobody is questioning his ability to hang with the best of the players, even though he's struggling in this particular event. I will also add that at least I can't really recall the last time Hikaru did defeat a player above, say, 2750, but that doesn't mean he's not capable. Players go through cold streaks, they go through hot streaks. So to answer that question, I do think, we focus, not we in terms of you and I, Danny, but we as in the royal we focus on Hikaru's ability as a speed chess player and his streaming and all that. And I think oftentimes people dismiss his skills in classical chess. But I do think it is fair, considering his results have shown that he has not defeated these super high caliber players recently in head-to-head games, that I do think it is fair to wonder when he will right that ship. Because he certainly is capable.
Well, it's an interesting point. He did win the U.S. Championship this year, right? And I think after winning the Grand Chess Tour finals and he started off very well in 2019. You're right. He did not defeat So or Caruana. He drew both of those players at the U.S. Championship.
And Shankar.
True. I would argue that I think that sometimes what happens is the perception seems more polarizing because of the contrast, meaning because he's so good at Blitz and Bullet, when he doesn't perform in classical, it almost stands out more. I think that's an argument you can make. As you said, people don't rail as hard maybe on other players with slumps, even though I would argue there's a lot of truth to the old adage that class is permanent and form is temporary. He belongs in that class. His form is not always on par, but neither is anybody's. But, I don't think it's an unfair perception because he's so good at Blitz and Bullet. It makes people wonder if the talent is there, why isn't the results there in classical? I think that's why the question comes up, right? But I don't think it's necessarily because, at least for me, anyone would ever question, as you said, as Griffin said, just about, does he really belong there? I think for sure. And I would argue that I think that Nakamura Wright is one of the most dangerous, best talents that has existed in this generation. I think that sometimes, as we said, slumps can happen, and form can be something that is hard to always know. I talked to Hikaru at last year's Isle of Man, Robert. I don't know if you ever saw that video. You were busy playing and drawing Vichy and Non because you're so awesome. But I had a sit down with Hikaru after he won his game in, I think it was round 3. And Hikaru was awesome, just like super open and just humble about it, and just acknowledged, like, it's one of those tough things that when things aren't always going right, like, to overcorrect is to swear off the road, right? But you also want to make minor adjustments, and it doesn't always work, right? And it's a difficult thing. Hikaru shared that he often finds that he's not in the right form when he's almost spending too much time. When he's playing a little more closer to Jan Nepomniachtchi than, let's say, Alexander Grishuk, is when Hikaru really feels right, like really trusting himself and calculating. And I think he is a super talent, or he wouldn't be as dominant in blitz and bullet as he is over these guys. Like, he's just so dominant in those time controls because of his intuition and his talent, and what that does to translate to playing classical chess at a 2800 level, yours truly would have no idea. I would have no idea, but I know that it's a hard task, and
and I do think it's interesting because we talk about this in any sport, right? When people start getting, not that Hikaru is old, obviously, but everyone ages with every single second that passes by. When is it no longer a slump, and when is it more of like this person is just not into caliber they used to be? And I'm not saying that's the case. I don't think anyone can say. You can only answer that question kind of retroactively. But when a player is slumping for a long period of time or hasn't defeated a player in the top 15 for a while, it does start begging the question of, like, what's going on? Can they still defeat these players? And I think the answer with respect to Caro is yes, but I do want him to start winning some of these games so that, like, it eases this conversation and also maybe gives him more confidence, because it is to lose confidence when you struggle and he finished last in Zagreb. Here he's -1. You do want to give your best showing, and a win in this game in particular, right, could be very useful in righting that ship.
Yeah, agreed fully. And I guess now, all right, on cue, we should probably bring our attention to Hikaru's game, right? We've got a situation here with a traditional Queen's Gambit declined, and now this funny maneuver where the knight goes from f3 to e5 to g4, all as a means in the hopes that you remove this key defender of Black's king and try to launch some sort of pressure on the king side. This is a fun idea, I guess, for players who maybe are always looking at Queen's Gambit decline structures and thinking only about Carlsbad style approaches, meaning minority attack stuff on the queen side, to be aware of this type of maneuver where you bring a piece around. The other option, of course, when the knight was on e5, is sometimes you can also consider f4. That wasn't the case here because d4 would probably fall, and frankly the dark squares would be too weak. But another idea, as we're seeing, is to bring the knight to g4 in the hopes that this sort of transition occurs where white is in fantastic shape with some real pressure over here on the king side. So if you're looking at Hikaru's position, that's kind of the idea, and I like it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, actually, to just go back before knight c6 was played. Okay. And you raised a very good point. If after knight e5, if knight d7 was played, then white surely is playing pawn f4.
Right.
To cement that knight in there and saying your knight on d7 is dominated by the pawn on d4. Right? Your knight is nowhere forward to go. So the knight on c6, on the other hand, as you correctly point out, hits the d4 square, so it doesn't allow you to play f4. You showed that variation, but it's just important to see how little differences, little changes in where that knight goes will change white's plan. You don't want to just have one plan, have tunnel vision, say, I am going to go forward with this, and not react to what your opponent is doing. And that's why knight g4 is now an idea, because for starters, there's no knight on d7 protecting the knight on f6. And second of all, the knight on c6 blocks the bishop on b7 from protecting the d5 pawn. So knight g4 is removing the guard. We usually think of that in a very tactical way of like, oh, I'm removing the guard so that the queen no longer protects the checkmating square and I'm a checkmate. That's how we do tactics. But the guard here is the d5 pawn, and that is a pawn that can't be protected by another pawn, which makes black's life a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I love that. Removing the guard almost in a positional sense, right?
Yep.
And also love the follow-up comment from Griff Griffin, who says that he appreciates our insights and he loves this community. really like that, right? It's nice to see the positive approach there. Sometimes people say they're not trolling with a sheepish question, but the follow-up attitude proves that they really were. So your response saying you really actually wanted our insights and we gave it, we really appreciate that. So it really means a lot when everyone is being positive, asking questions. Not to say that some questions aren't a little bit, I don't even want to say controversial, but just, like, hey, honestly, sometimes you're like, hey, what's the deal, right? And I think it's a fair one, especially because Hikaru has so many fans. It doesn't have to come from like a negative trolling place, I think if we had our way, we would want every one of these guys to win every game.
Am I supposed to respond to that? Because I don't think I want everybody to win every game.
Well, who do you want to lose, Robert?
Don't put me on the spot just because the answer is you.
You're like, you mean besides you? I want you to lose every game you play.
How about the chess bras? Because we keep losing them in matches.
Oh, I want the chess bras to lose in our next match. Dude, how did we let them off the hook?
It's that 3-check.
Like, who came up with that? Can I still say that I'm mad at Simon about that? It's like, what was the deal with 3-check? Like, real chess. I want Holyfield. Let's bring back the 6-board view so I can give myself a break off camera because I want to seethe for a second.
Oh, Danny. You'll be okay, I promise.
Yeah.
Done seething?
I'm done seething. Speaking of being okay, we're going to have a lot of interesting chess today. I mean, let's go back to that Mamajarov game. I mean,
I just caught that one too. I was about to say that.
Like,
we're finishing each other's.
Sorry, everyone trolls me, but you know what? It's not even in my nature. Sandwiches. We're feeding each other and we're finishing each other's sandwiches. And if you were here, I would order you whatever sandwich you want.
Ooh, from where? Where's your go-to place for sandwiches?
So like Ned's Subs is really good.
Okay.
I would say, Jimmy John's is like, the cheap kind of whatever. I mean, I know but you're kind of a Subway guy, so.
Well, I do like to eat fresh, but right. Subway, I mean, look at this position, though.
Yeah, look at this. This position is staying fresh.
I was getting hungry, and I'm like, I got to talk about something that's not food right now. But if we think about this position, kind of the overarching themes of this position.
Yeah.
White is currently up 1 pawn.
In the live position, yeah.
Live position. But that pawn can be captured on e6. And the question is, just because black will restore material equality, does that make the position equal? I say no. I love the bishop on e4 compared to that bishop on c8. So the bishop on e4 hits b7, hits h7, and stops a knight from getting into the f3 square. That bishop is just such an important piece in the position, and not to mention king safety. The white king, black can try to initiate an attack with a knight g4 idea at some moment, but the king on g1 does feel quite safe back there, because even if you play knight to g4, I can play pawn to h4 and say, well, you're not checkmating me now. And I don't know. I'm starting to appreciate white's position more and more.
Yeah, I feel like there's still a lot of tactics ahead here that, gonna be a lot of calculation for both players. If we look at some forcing lines, there's variations where the knight comes to e3, but okay, there's still 1.5 million ways for white to respond to that.
E takes f7 maybe?
Including e takes f7, including even variations with bishop takes h7 and then e7, and things get weird. I think this is exactly what happens in this variation of the Nimzo, where white basically forces the hand with this huge center approach that starts with e4. If you don't go direct and try to challenge white's grip, you're just going to get squeezed, right? So this entire approach here with d5 is just, you're already down the road of being fully pot committed, so to speak, that you have to bring down the walls, right? If you don't bring down this center, everything about white's position will dominate with activity. So this is exactly the way we expected this game to go, I guess. But I don't know. I'm calculating the position and still maybe a little biased toward the fact that I've had a lot of these positions as black, something similar to it, and I feel like sometimes there can be a sneaky long-term initiative against the white king. But I admit, as I look at bishop takes e4, knight g4, okay, doesn't have to be played. As I look at the live position here with bishop takes e4, I don't really have a happy answer for how to approach with black. I mean, I'd like to play something like bishop takes e6, and if you somehow were tricked into taking b7, I'll just happily sacrifice the exchange and checkmate you within a couple moves. So that's one idea to keep in mind. So maybe black can play bishop takes e6 here on that note. And how would you follow up that?
I'm wondering if, trying to think if I can at some point get away with g takes f4, but I don't really like it, so I'm not going to do it. It's a good question. Maybe f3 for white, but I also feel
like... But now what happens sometimes is, you know, we transition into something, I don't know, if it happens to get a little more positional, maybe black's okay. Okay, here probably queen d2 is fine, but these kind of positions just lead to long-term dynamic chances for both sides. This is definitely a 3-result kind of position. So not to say I don't agree with you that in a live position I also think that Mamedyarov has handled it well, but I don't know that it's totally clear yet.
Yeah, I'm with you. Actually, the more I think about it, the more we look at these lines. You know, knight g4 looks very interesting. Will white have to be more passive or retreating with knight f3, or can you get away with playing pawn h4? These are questions that are not easy to answer, and well, Mamedyarov will have to answer them, but he is the one who ventured into this line. Right? He wasn't forced to choose this opening today. I feel like he has some ideas in it, and I guess let me ask you a broader question, Danny, about these two players' styles. Don't you feel like this opening and this current position favors Mamedyarov style more than Caruana's?
So, you know, I think that would be the logical answer, I guess, just knowing how dynamic we know that Schoch likes to play. But I would argue that Fabiano is, if the position has been well prepared and there's a lot of precise calculation, he thrives in all styles of positions, right? I mean, we know that he is someone who likes to get lines that are very concrete and can be prepared and calculated in a way that requires, you know, super precise moments to be handled well, and he does that maybe as well as anybody. So I don't know, and again, I love that we have a slight kind of different view on this position, because it'll be nice to see how both sides approach it here. We're going to find out when we come back, because all 6 games are still rolling here in round 10 of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup. We're going to take a very, very short break. Don't go anywhere. When we return, more analysis like you've seen here, and more answers from Robert Hess on the daily question as far as how we recommend you learn from the top players and how they manage their time. We'll be back in just a moment. And we are back here with Chess.com's continued coverage of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup. Thank you for being with us. As you can see in front of you, those are the standings heading into round 10. Lots of exciting games going on, and we're happy to be here. So, Robert, let's jump right back into this game here with Shahryar Mamedyarov playing the white pieces against Fabiano Caruana. We left it wondering whether knight g4 was even worth Black's time, and Fabiano says, I think it is. He played the move knight g4. He's threatening checkmate on h2. And I think the most logical way to deal with it is the way that we predicted, which is to play a move like h4, right? Because there's mate on h2. Playing a move like f3 to open up the queen to defend h2 would allow knight e3.
Right.
So it seems that h4 will be what the doctor orders, unless knight f3 is actually a move.
Yeah, it's funny because knight f3 is a move taking your knight from a great square on d4. Right? That knight wants to stay there. But as you were pointing out, that if you play h4, you're just loosening up some of these very important squares on the king side. So if your f takes g3, perhaps f takes g, this knight e3 stuff, it's getting very complicated and requires concrete calculation. And if you play knight back to f3 instead of pawn to h4 in the live position, then you're saying, okay, I've gotten rid of my own piece from a great outpost in d4. Now maybe there's, Black can just take back on e6, but is Black going to be able to pile up pressure on the king side? And if not, then knight f3 is probably the best strategic choice, keeping your king side compact. You'd like to have compact pawn structures to help in the defense of your king side.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you could go for a line like this now that you couldn't really do before with h4, I mean, it's okay, it's a double-edged position regardless, but here white is up a pawn, and if there's no concrete way for Black to capitalize on the pressure here, then it certainly, I think, has to be considered. So I'm curious how Fabiano plans to continue the attack as Black here, depending on what Mamedyarov does. But either way, this is going to be one that has our attention here for the rest of the day. So hoping that the fireworks remain. We've got... Go ahead. Sorry
to just one last point. In compliment to you, I do think knight f3 is the more practical choice, and in fact, to me, it looks like the better choice. The more I'm looking into this position, because bishop takes e6 is the response that I think Black should play. But even in those circumstances, if white plays this move queen to d2, for example, and you can just put that on the board really quickly just to show. Now I'm forcing you to do something about your pawn f4, and if you take me on g3 and I take back with the f pawn. That way, look at my position, right? The rook now is an open file. My bishop on e4 is still a great piece. My queen both protects the h2 square, but also might go queen g5 check to trade queens to say, look at my better pawn structure on the king side, and perhaps you have some weaknesses that you can't deal with very well. So actually, your idea, Danny, knight f3 is excellent. I much prefer it to my initial idea with pawn h4, and so I think that Mamedyarov should go with it.
Well, he's up a little bit on the clock, not by much, so I don't know that this is a position anymore that we could discern that either player has an advantage in terms of preparation, right? Even if we feel like stylistically the position favors the Azeri number one, for those of you who didn't know that, right? Shahryar Mamedyarov is currently the number one player in Azerbaijan, ranked number 9 in the world in terms of classical chess. But even if the stylistic features are favorable for him, I don't think he has any preparation advantage over Fabiano Caruana at this point in the game. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Fabi still has a chance, right? He still has a chance to be in the thick of things, right? We know that he lost yesterday to Dingley Ren and now has the black pieces for the second day in a row. But he's the world number 2 for a reason, and we'll see if he can right the ship here. So I want to jump. Well, actually, every one of these games has me excited to cover them today, and I really mean that. I want to go back to the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, right? Because we have to back up and analyze what happened here. Things have changed. Bishop e7 was chosen, as you suggested, right? The more defensive approach. b5, as I highlighted, would be the drawback of not taking the b pawn here. And Nepo says, yeah, I agree. I'm going to use that b pawn while I still have it. And after the trade, we see that white uses the initiative to try to keep bringing pressure before black can coordinate. But at the risk of the fact that he's now down, I mean, in the live position, he's down 2 pawns, and black has the bishop pair. So bishop's king e8, and then bishop back to c8. Wow. Maxime just doing everything he can to keep white from having a concrete win. It does feel like, how can this work out? White is only down a pawn for this kind of compensation, a dominant knight, a king and e8. If you were just walking by the board, you'd say, why doesn't MVL castle, right? And then you'd remember that he's already moved his king. So have you ever done that, Robert? Walked by a board and thought, why doesn't the guy just castle before you look at the score sheet?
Oh, I've seen people castle after already moving their king because they think it's a normal-looking position. They're like, oh, shoot, I totally forgot that piece moved.
Yeah, it is a human mistake. I mean, even some of the best players in the world have done it. B6 here played by Nepomniachtchi, taking advantage of the pin. And after the move bishop c5, now he's going to use that newly opened b5 square for a check. And then this is the move in the live position that has me kind of shocked here. This move knight to d7, like, say what? Right? I mean,
so let's see. Okay, I'm trying to figure this all out. So the bishop on c5 is under attack. I'm trying to figure exactly what this move does. The bishop is under attack. You cannot take the pawn on b6 because the a7 pawn is pinned to the rook on a8. You can't take the knight on d7 if you're black because bishop takes d7 is met by rook takes d7 with check, and that doesn't look very favorable. Although even that is probably not the end of the world. So if you actually
because all the pawns might be traded, right?
Exactly, right? So bishop takes d7.
Yeah, we'll analyze that. Bishop takes, rook takes, and just to show everyone, as scary as it looks to bring the rook to the 7th rank with check, even if white continues capturing, in the end, isn't black just totally okay?
Yeah, so 100%. So, white might even take on a7 first, but that doesn't help in terms of trading everything off and liquidating. But I like what Maxime did in the game, because I was about to say, we found a line that seems to equalize. Let's look for more. So, of course, Maxime saw he could take on d7, but instead he plays bishop to d6. And he says, wait a second, is that a pony that's wandered too far?
Oh, wow. Okay, what does Nepo have planned here? My first instinct is this a blunder?
I think it is.
Like, how do you deal with this? You're losing the knight.
Yeah, how do you extricate that piece from its current entrapment? I don't see... Because rook takes a7.
Did you just say, how do you extricate that piece from its current entrapment?
Yeah.
This is not a show where you flex your Yale grad credentials, okay? That vocabulary is... In my house, you wash your mouth out with soap after using language like that.
Well, good thing that I don't live near
That's
roof.
the last unnecessary vocabulary that you're going to extricate from your own entrapment.
I did have pie for lunch, and you're telling me to shut my pie hole. It's very offensive.
The way you talked about that pie before we went live made me want some. For those of you who missed it, Robert had one of those classic crises we all deal with, where you've got this an awesome amount of pie, but it's just little enough that you don't want to justify saving it, but it's just too much that if you eat it all in one setting, you know what I mean? And Robert made the latter choice and is sitting there regretting how full his tummy is with that strawberry. Oh man.
Yeah, but I'm hungry for some more of these chess games because
I'm sitting here wondering if Jan's going to regret this night. This is fantastic. I mean, look at this move, bishop d6. Like, hello, McFly. But what do I like? Seriously, let's solve this. So we have to be missing something. He's just losing a piece here.
No, I think he blundered. I think he is just playing badly.
This could be talk about a turn of events. We thought Nepo was going to be pushing his white, trying to really show why he's the tournament leader. But again, maybe playing a little bit too fast. MGT3 coming in with the cheers. We appreciate it. It's unfortunately in favor of your use of that entrapment vocabulary, but we'll forgive him for that. What happens here? You guys, like, this is a big deal. Okay, okay, wait, is rook takes a7 crazy?
Just rook takes a7.
And the rook just guards the mate. I mean, the queen.
Yep.
This is like, I don't want to say hilarious, but it's actually just shocking that the position was one full of white trying to press, and clearly he got a little bit too frisky.
Yeah, I don't really understand many of the moves in this game, and I say that not from I can't calculate it. It seemed like Jan had so many good options earlier in this game.
Yeah,
that he did. It was like all the way back where you're going. E takes f6.
Yeah, no, I was going back to that. Yeah,
I can't comprehend why he wouldn't do that.
yeah, I mean, especially because we looked at this line and it seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, I guess there's a chance maybe he thought he had more than this extra exchange, but I mean, it's hard for me to imagine White doesn't have the upper hand here. I mean, I guess you might immediately start with a move like knight g5, not even because you're going to take this pawn, but because you can follow with things like f4 and g4. You're trying to use your pawn majority before black does the same. I don't know. I have a hard time believing that White doesn't have the upper hand in that endgame. So for him to castle, he's really saying he believes in this initiative, and he's going to have to prove it. So for him to not follow that up with anything concrete, then he takes with the bishop instead of the knight, right? With what maybe a more natural approach would be something like this, threatening bishop takes e6 and then take on e5. But already, maybe he felt like the initiative was slipping, so he's really searching for more here, Robert. And but when we looked at this, I mean, you heard me, right? I mean, anyone who's here, like right before this blunder, I'm looking at this position and thinking, White must have compensation here. I mean, right? I mean, the knight on e5, the pressure on a7, the fact that black just played the move bishop to c8, undeveloping it. I mean, we're probably going to do some sort of engine deep dive or at least a Rensch's retry after this game, because I have no idea what's going on, and I'd love the chance to figure it out. But I think you agree, right? I mean, okay, if White even just plays f4 here, are you going to say that White isn't doing okay?
Right, f4 looks good. Even a move like rook a2 to decide where you want to double your rooks, either on e2 or on a1. You can choose which file you want to go to. I mean, just black can't really move.
But instead, he goes b6, taking advantage of the pin and opening b5. And after the move bishop c5, puts the knight on d7. I feel bad. I'm not trying to laugh. I mean, it's a funny position. The knight is trapped on d7.
You're just laughing in the face of danger.
I am. I'm laughing in the face of danger. I'm laughing because it doesn't make sense. Yeah, typewriter, platinum member in Chess TV chat says, as Canty would say, Nepo just jumped off the deep end. Cute. We're going to do an engine deep dive. So love that. I don't know why I put on that voice sometimes when I'm plugging Chess.com features. I don't know.
Because it's the deep dive, the cave-like atmosphere, the bait.
Anyway. Shout out to everybody that's been with us throughout the day. We've got 5,700 of you. I'm not sure how many of you might be tuning in from Chess.com's homepage or the Twitch TV front page, if that's even there. I don't even know. But either way, thanks for being here. Let me remind you of what you're watching. This is the 2019 Sinquefield Cup. The format is a 12-player round robin. That's 11 rounds of classical chess. You get a win. You get a point for a win, a half a point for a draw, and it's fun to play chess. We also got a lot of money on the line. Let's remind them what they're playing for. Big prizes. $90,000 for first place. That's almost as much as we pay Robert to do a single show here on Chess.com. So as Robert's rates continue to climb, you know.
Well, you tried to have me at $0, so at least it's more.
Again, I just found out the other day we were paying you. I thought you were doing this just as a friend. That broke my heart.
Well, your heart is very important to me, but somehow I'll get over it.
But anyways, there's a lot on the line, and regardless of what brought you here, like we said, whether it's Chess.com, Twitch, we appreciate you being here and a part of this community, and we appreciate that Prime subscription there from Sutter100. Thank you.
And I see a good question from Super Saiyan.
Go for it.
What if White tries to double on the D file here? So I guess a move like rook to D2 or something like that?
Right. The point, everyone, I'll just show the obvious point, is if the trade happens, White wants this move, rook d1 in the end, to win the piece back.
Right.
But go ahead.
So I was going to think that a move like rook d8 was good for black, because your knight still can't move.
Yeah.
And
if you go here, I think I can just take here. Wait.
Then rook takes d6.
Oh, crazy line at the end. White actually takes a7, and you can't stop him from queening. Robert, did you calculate that as fast as a grandmaster would?
Well, I sort of just came up with the line, so I guess by default the grandmaster came up with it. So.
No, but that's a great line, actually. Again, so or Super Saiyan, maybe he gets. Is it Super Saiyan? I don't watch Dragon Ball Z. Don't look at me like that. My producer just looked at me like I killed his pony or something by saying I don't watch Dragon Ball Z. Anyway, so rook to d8.
Maybe bishop takes d7 first is the way to go, based on what you just...
What I was going to say is if you go for this line, you could go grab a pawn. No, you can't. Never mind. Then you lose. Just kidding. Losing a piece. So you have to take it, but that means that white...
No, then go rook d8 instead of taking with the king on d7.
Ah. Okay, so now the question is, if I make a better doubling move and put the rook on d3, you can't do that, because my bishop will come back to b5 and defend the rook, actually. So let me show my idea. Is if takes, and rook d8, I play bishop b5, and there will be no discovered check. The point, everyone, is Robert was being a silly rabbit, forgetting that tricks are for kids, and trying to trick your host here with the idea that in this move order you have bishop takes h2, discovered check, and you win the rook. But with the rook on d3, I think that Nepo can save that. So how do you deal with that?
Well, even there, that line that you were just showing, black can only be better. You'll be up 2 pawns. So the rook d8, bishop b5, just a takes b6. I mean, how can black possibly complain about this?
Only if he can't win, right? I mean, if you look at the live position with the knight trapped on d7, it's hard to not want more, right? I think that's the only point. But no, you make a good one. Obviously, Nepo has blundered this game away with the knight wandering too far, and how will he deal with that?
Maybe actually after your rook d3 move.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works, but I want to play a6 because all of your tactics are tied to somehow taking on a7 at the end of a variation. So if I play a6, I'm trying to go rook d8 next.
So let's say I play rook to d1, obviously, right?
Okay, so I'll take on b5.
Right, and then you're going to try to play rook d8, I see.
Yeah.
And my knight is pinned due to the fact that moving said beast would just lose the rook on d6. Plus, I've got other types of problems looming in the background, right? As Jay-Z would say, I got 99 problems, and a back rank is one of them. And this is a relative pin, as we would highlight. An absolute pin is when the knight legally couldn't move because of check. Relative means you can move it, but you might regret it, right? Because if you move it, I win material. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, it just looks like we're headed down a road that Nepomniachtchi regrets. And wouldn't that be a storyline that turns around, right? MVL winning as black to help the rest of the field, beating one of the tournament leaders. Can you say tie breaks? Can you say cancel your plans for Thursday? Because if he beats Nepomniachtchi, I think it's even more likely.
I agree.
So
Wait, you think MVL wins, it's more likely we do not get tie breaks?
No, I'm saying it's more likely we do get tie breaks if he wins.
Well, why is it more likely we do get tie breaks?
Well, I'm just assuming that if let's say MVL wins and anybody else below them, Karyakin, Anand, maintain pace, right? Even if they draw, they're playing this round, Sergei Karyakin and Vishy Anand. That means they'll be tied with Nepomniachtchi. And if Dingley Ren... I mean, I know that makes Dingley Ren maybe the clear leader, assuming he gets a draw this round. But, I just think that it brings the rest of the field within play, right, when one of the tournament leaders is slowed down.
I agree. I'm with you. I just think Ding will be the happiest person in the room there if Nepo does lose this game.
Well, and we've got a number of games we can jump to since we've been talking about it. I'm bringing up the one between Levon Aronian and Dingley Ren on the left. You can see all 6 games still going on the right. If you're in to doing your own thing, some people are loners. As you can tell, I like having a partner here with me. But if you want to go all on your lonesome to write that hit song, Alone in Your Principles, go to chess.com/events, chess.com/live. Choose any of one of those boards you see, and then mute us because we don't want you listening. I'm actually just kidding. Please don't do that. Just stay here.
Oh, I thought you were telling me to mute you, so I started to do that, and then I realized...
You wish. You turn up the volume, young man, because it's about to get loud in your ear.
It's already loud in my ear.
That's right.
Which of these 6 great games are you most fascinated by right now?
I feel like we should just analyze this Dingley Ren one a little bit further, because we left it a little bit ago, and we were still looking at what was a wild and wacky fried liver two knights kind of crazy position. Those of that have been with us all day remember that we talked about c5 being the move by black for dual purposes. Strengthen the center, bring back the knight, right, from the bad place on the edge of the board.
Sounds like what your friends tell you.
Right.
Bring back the knight.
Bring back the knight, right? Don't go to sleep just yet. But as Robert highlighted, yes, c5 prepares to bring back the knight and kind of right that ship. It also puts the pawn on a targetable square, and Aronian immediately pounces on that with the move bishop a3 and follows it with knight to e4. So this is where we left the game, where white was probably assured of the fact that the c5 pawn would be something he could win. Because of that, black had to play knight b4 to block the bishop. But Aronian decides he's going to make the trade and play rook e1. I mean, remember, if you're counting your chickens here, white is up a pawn. It may be an ugly pawn, but it's a pawn nonetheless, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of the key point, right? Is that pawn is something black still has to corral. Bishop to b8 is played sort of with that purpose, but white just calls the bluff, says you take mine, I'll take yours, and we get more exchanges. Where black in the end is going to be down a pawn probably no matter what, but he's got pressure. He's got the open d file. He's got this isolated pawn to gang up on. You could argue the bishop is a better minor piece than the knight in this type of position. And that's the compensation that Ding relied upon. But as the game goes on, I mean, in the end, we're looking at a position here in the live board where Aronian, he's up a pawn still, right? Like I said, it may be an ugly pawn, but you woke up married to an ugly pineapple, and that worked out.
Pineapple?
You don't get that reference?
Oh, what's that from?
I woke up married to a pineapple, an ugly pineapple.
I have no idea.
This is awesome dad movie time. First person who gets the movie gets a diamond membership. I'm feeling generous. All right, waiting. Nope, not SpongeBob. I'm watching both chats. Who gets it? Who gets the diamond membership? Oh, there you go. The Super Saiyan Ice Age gets it. First one. That's right. And Fedrod, platinum member in the Chess TV chat, you get a little bit of a place in my heart. This is where I keep all of my dad jokes. Let me show on camera. This is where I keep all of my dad jokes, and now you're right here next to my heart. Dad jokes, Fedrod.
That leaves no room for me. I see it. I'm the kick.
Yeah, you were eliminated because you didn't know that Buck was the person who says, played by Simon Pegg. Did everyone like that thrusted view where I like thrusted my chest forward there? And
you look good. You look good. You
so
know what
you
doesn't
go.
look good though? Disposition.
Yeah,
Levon's winning chances do not look particularly good.
I like him. I feel like
you like his winning chances.
It's a pawn, dude. Like I said.
But that bishop is so good. The pawn that's about to be on b3 for white is going to be weak. Like, black can just bring that rook either to a3 or to a5 and just decide which pawn it wants to gang up on. Like, rook a5 to d5, or putting the rook on a5 to stop white from playing d5 looked good as well.
I think you're getting a little bit sloppy here.
A little bit sloppy?
Yeah. Hey.
Because I didn't know the pineapple joke?
Because you forgot about your back rank.
I did forget my back rank. So my other move, rook a5 instead of rook a3.
Rook a5. Rook a5. Okay, I get it. But, you're not winning my pawn back right away. I'll even play something like, okay, I want the f4 square for the knight. You know it. And I wonder if I can risk the light squares. I say, damn the torpedoes. Forget these guys. I want to put my pony on a useful square and push my Peshka home, blocking your pressure on my b3 pawn. Okay, I mean, I don't want to contribute any more to the narrative that you and I are not on the same page. You and I both know we are psychically connected, but I believe there are a little more winning. I believe that Ding is fighting to hold this position for sure, and it's not going to be one that Levon just lets him off the hook easily. That's what I think.
Okay. I'm with you, partner. You told me we're on the same page, so I'm on page 72. And I believe you're about to turn to page 73. So we're going to turn that new leaf.
Ding is on the page of being one of the top qualifiers potentially for the World Championship title. So if he gets into the candidates, early money has the Chinese number one being a big favorite. So if you didn't know who Dingley Ren was, somehow he's still less known to the Western audience. I think for a lot of people tuning in on Twitch who aren't as heavy lifting chess fans, Dingley Ren is a name you may want to get familiar with. I can tell you that right now. So not only is he world number 3, he may end up winning the Sinquefield Cup and just further kind of cementing his road right now to be a potential world championship qualifier. So.
And I do think it would be a huge tournament victory for him.
Yep.
Because as we discussed a couple days ago now, I just can't think of any big events that he's won. This would definitely be the highlight of his career thus far. Of course, China won the Olympiad where he was a member of their team, and I think that makes him a national hero. But in terms of individual competition, which chess is in every tournament except for these Olympiads and other rare team events, this would be his biggest success in chess.
Nepomniachtchi's game is continuing to be a fascinating one. For those who may have just tuned in, Jan Nepomniachtchi, one of the tournament leaders, played the move knight to d7 just a couple moments ago and sort of self-imprisoned his own knight after the surprising retreat bishop d6. This knight simply has no squares to get to safety, and apparently he was not at the board for some time while it was his move, perhaps refreshing himself emotionally, mentally, physically. And he has moved now. He's played the move rook a to c1, so currently it's MVL's turn. But we're being given word that Nepo is maybe bouncing around a little bit, trying to shake off those tears. I used to cry at the chessboard a lot, and I would try to hide it. So maybe he just gets up and leaves before he lets the emotions, before he lets the the waterworks out.
Did you actually cry at the chessboard?
Never. Sometimes I exaggerate for your entertainment, Robert. Thanks for doing that in front of 8,500 people. If you happen to be tuning in from the Twitch front page, we appreciate you being here. Hit that follow button. The biggest events in chess happen right here. The Sinquefield Cup still has 2 rounds remaining. This is the largest prize fun classical event of the year, and we've been covering the Grand Chess Tour and we'll continue to do so. So the Speed Chess Championship is also coming up. That's the event that most of the online chess community, I think, really looks forward to. We've got all kinds of stuff happening as we build up to what will also be the first ever online event that contributes toward a World Chess Championship. That is the Fisher Random World Chess Championship going on. So anyway, thanks for being here. Where you want to go now? Rook d8 was played. I feel like we might be moments away from just a shocking result here. Nepo is the kind of guy who would throw in the towel if he was that frustrated emotionally, Robert. Again, just to highlight the basic features, everyone. The knight has no squares.
Well, it has c5 now, I guess.
But then b6 falls, and you're just down 2 pawns, and you didn't even get the bishop pair back.
Yep.
That's probably what we're going for.
So maybe even bishop takes c5 to liquidate might make sense instead of taking on b6 right away, because you force the capture on d8 exactly, and then 2 extra pawns in the b file should be a winning endgame.
Yeah, you force the rook back to c1 because there's a threat of checkmate in one move. And probably a number of moves would be pretty easy here, including just king e7, preparing to slowly get your king out and kind of help your extra pawn. Should be a number of ways for black to win this one. This is going to be a shocking finish here just because of where we came in this game. Our tournament leader, Jan Nepomniachtchi, likely about to go down in flames here with the white pieces.
Yeah, and we should show why in a move ago, instead of rook d8, why bishop takes d7 was less accurate, because after bishop takes d7, bishop takes d7, king d7, there's rook c7 check, making use of the fact that bishop on d6 is pinned. And so you win this bishop back on d6 and get your rook on the 7th and 6th ranks. That would not be good at all for black.
Yeah, a great cue. We mentioned a relative pin. This is an absolute pin. That being when a piece is stuck and legally unable to move because it would be against the rules of chess to put your own king under attack. So, yeah, that's why we don't just take on d7 here. Black played the move rook d8, and now we're expecting him to liquefy everything on c5 and head to a winning ending. So, I don't know why I'm just so. I guess I should be surprised by this, right? Maxime has not had his best chess at Sinquefield. Jan Nepomniachtchi has done nothing but impress, and this is going to be the game of the round for sure if it continues to go this direction, and the Frenchman with 3 names gets the W. So,
looking like a pretty easy task at this point. I mean, he didn't even have to do anything. He got a bad position on the opening.
Yep.
He made a couple of moves that made matters a little more complicated, and Jan kind of did it to himself.
Yeah, well, he put a knight on d7, like literally did it to himself, right? Look at the position with Magnus and Wesley So. Not how I expected that structure to evolve, with Carlsen stuck with the doubled c-pawns here. I guess Black clearly has some issues to deal with as well, mainly being that the b file and this weak pawn will be forever problematic. But let's back up and analyze quickly and just see how we got here, because when we left this one, the world champion as white, from our point of view, seemed in pretty good shape. But I guess we were right that Wesley really did want to take on d6 with the queen, which is why he played this move rook e8, everyone, because now on takes, queen takes, bishop a3, the rook was no longer a sitting duck, c5 was played. And I'm kind of surprised by knight c4. I guess I felt like white had more of an edge to build up on rather than committing to the bad structure. But maybe I'm misunderstanding something about the live position here, Robert. After g3, maybe you can instruct me as the grandmaster. Does white have better winning chances here than I'm thinking?
I think white has pretty decent winning chances, and the reason why is the control of the central squares. And you may say, wait, aren't both sides doing the same thing? Look at this pawn on c3. We talk about double pawns as if they're always bad, but this pawn c3 is very, very useful here, stopping a piece from going to the d4 square, in particular a knight. The d5 square, on the other hand, even though there's a knight preventing me from going there, I can consider two things. One is putting my rook on d5 and sacrificing it for the knight, if I think that having more advanced pawns is advantageous. The other, which is much more sensible, and the reason why I played g3, is knight g2, knight e3, knight d5. Just planting your knight on a very advanced square. Your rook can always swing to b1, as when you see a position like this, you want to figure out what are the weaknesses. That pawn is a backward pawn. What's a backward pawn? It is a pawn that can't push forward without being lost or in harm's way. And it also is one that's easier to attack by definition because it doesn't have a pawn protecting it. So c5 and a5 are certainly safe because of that backward pawn, but the pawn on b6 is a clear and present danger for black to deal with.
Yeah, that's a great point. Honestly, you really called out my superficial evaluation when we first came to this position, and in a very instructive way. No jokes, because as I looked at this one, and maybe some of the viewers felt the same way, you just look, I guess, optically, right, visually, it doesn't seem that attractive, but as you look at the fact that these double pawns control the critical squares, preventing plans of improvement, and really if you give white, okay, you wouldn't want to bring the rook to b1 right away, everyone, because then you give black access to this open file, but assuming maybe you deal with that, perhaps as Robert said, by filling the d5 square first, with the long route, maybe you bring the king to e3 where he guards some of these critical squares, freeing up your rook from that duty so that it can switch to the b file. There's a number of ways for white to improve this position, Robert, which is something I see in the live position. And there's not a lot of things that So can do in the live position, right? So that's a real important distinction, and I like that you highlighted the b6 pawn as such a problem. So the key point here, as you said, is just that there's no way for black. I'm now looking, and yes, the position is closed, and normally a two-knight advantage would be okay in a closed position, but as you said, there's no access, there's no squares, right? White's pawns guard everything, but white, on the other hand, right? If you like it, then you better put a pony on it. If you like it, then you better put a pony on it. By the way, I really do like it, and I want to put my knight there.
I'm with you, partner. And another thing that I'm thinking about, and I always say this, the side that controls the pawn breaks is often the side that's better. And what does that mean?
You do often say that.
I say it very frequently.
Tell more.
And if you look at this position, right, what does a pawn break? Well, a move like pawn to b5 would be a terrible example of a pawn break because you're challenging your opponent's pawns, but there you're just losing one. So a realistic pawn break in this position is, can white play for a move like pawn to f4? I would say the answer is no. You definitely don't want to do that too soon because the pawn e4 then becomes vulnerable. But if you can reroute this knight to e3 via g2, then you plug that knight on d5 as we've been discussing. After that, we can start thinking about perhaps there are ways for me to start breaking there on the king side, not to mention that the pawn on b6 is such a weakness. And I do think that something that we should point out as well, one additional thing is that if black could trade both sets of rooks, black's defensive task would be easier to deal with because I'm trying to think of a way to force them off. Let's say black plays king f8, and instead of doing knight g2 to e3, which is very good, you play king f2 and say king e7, and let's say you play king e2, exactly, just to trade off all these rooks.
I know where you're going, partner.
The problem here is a very closed position, and knights are better than bishops in closed positions. And in particular, this pawn on b6 is no longer as much of a target because I don't have a rook to attack it with. The whole benefit of having double isolated pawns is that the files adjacent to those double isolated pawns, in this case, adjacent to the C file is the B and D file, those are open, right? Both are open for white's rooks. The B file is closed to black because there's a pawn there, so rook on the B file would just be a defensive piece, whereas for white, it would be an offensive aggressive piece. So that's why you don't want to trade both pairs of rooks for white unless you're getting some sort of obvious benefit, in this case, you're not. So I would
and in this case, the opposite becomes true, where now the closed position really does favor the knights, because probably the weakest pawn in a closed position without the rooks on the board is actually c4 now, right? Not b6. So it's no, that's a really instructive point. I know that seems like a bit of imaginary chess, everyone, but if you're wondering how to play chess like top players, there's a reason he has those two letters GM in front of his name. It's not just because he's grandma's most favorite. Okay, which he happens to be his bubby's most favorite. I can tell you that Grandmaster Robert Hess is an excellent teacher, and that's exactly how you have to approach these positions, is imagining what exchanges favor you. Because if you don't ask yourself those questions, you will make them blindly, impulsively, and then be like, where did all my winning chances go? Right? Taking the time to establish the rook trade favors me or it doesn't. The knight trade favors me or it doesn't. The same thing as if you're trying to draw too, right? So you want to establish these goals. This is universal advice in terms of your approach, whether you're playing for a win or the one who knows he's worse and is trying to draw, right? Anyway, so good stuff. I hope that everyone is taking notes as Robert Hess starts talking. They're like, oh, an educational point there. We never made the jingle of another teaching moment by Robert Hess.
Well, hopefully we can get a good music.
Maybe I should sing the jingle.
Well, on that
next
note,
next game. Let's move on.
Well, I was going to say one more thing about that position.
Oh, okay. Never mind. You're teaching.
One last thing, I promise.
Go for it.
If black plays knight c6, which is a good way to improve the position of the knight, same idea we were talking before. Now you can trade on d1 and put the rook on d8. So actually, the concept of trading both pairs of rooks will come into play potentially very quickly, and you will see Magnus avoid trading both pairs of rooks. He'll keep at least one rook on the board.
All right. Well, no, that is a good point. In fact, I wonder how Magnus will deal with it. But I get the sense, and I'm not, I haven't seen a game like this in the Sinquefield Cup that I felt like Magnus had better chances to win since much, much earlier on. So, and I know that there's still a lot left here. We now see in the live position, So has played the move knight h5, which to me just invites king f2, and then Magnus will get back to his plan of filling the d5 square. So I'm very curious what the plan is. Maybe So's going to get very aggressive with something like f5. Because to me, leaving the d5 square, Robert, just doesn't make sense. Now I could put my rook on it if I wanted to. Yep. But regardless, if you're looking for a reason to get pumped here in round 10, obviously Magnus Carlsen has about as many fans as any top chess player on the planet. He is the world champion. Maybe he gets a big victory this round, Robert. This looks like a position that he can Magnus himself his way to a victory, which means we refer to Magnus's ability to just keep pushing, right? He's the Dory of the top-level chess world. He just keeps pushing, you just keep swimming, and sometimes you get victories.
You're absolutely right. And most players would not accept this horrible looking pawn structure of isolated A pawn, isolated C pawns that we mentioned before, but Magnus willing to do so, understanding the long-term benefits are clearly in his favor.
Yeah.
And let's be fair to Wesley. Because you have those pawns highlighted right there, just the knight might go to C8 to D6 and to attack those pawns. But as we keep discussing, the knight on E3 protects it. But now the knight's on H5, maybe F5 is an idea for black to challenge the center. So it's going to be interesting to see if West stays passive, which I think is probably the proper way to defend, or if he says, I really just can't sit and do nothing, I need some sort of activity, and goes for F5, which can very well backfire.
Okay, well, obviously a lot of chess ahead. We'll see if my prediction is right and Magnus Carlsen gets his first win, so stay tuned if you want to see what the world champion can pull off here in round 10 before the Sinquefield Cup really gets down to the wire. Let's bring up the view of all 6 boards, remind everybody of where we stand since all the games are going. and take a good look at what you see there. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave did indeed convert into an endgame that'll probably slow down tournament leader Jan Nepomniachtchi. Every one of those games is dynamic and interesting, but not nearly as dynamic and interesting as what we're about to do. Robert, it's time.
Yep.
Are you ready?
Is it time to let the old ways die?
It's time for you and I to do what we were meant to do. And that is shock the fans who didn't even know that we were about to premiere Chess.com's newest feature that's going to be hitting the scenes in 2 weeks. Robert, you've been testing it. All staff members have had access to it. This is going to be, I know Puzzle Rush kind of like excited people. This is what everybody loves to do, which is play Blitz combined with solving puzzles. This is the first ever server, as far as we know, that is going to pair people in puzzle battles where they now race. Just like a live chess game, you race each other in match format in puzzles. This is Puzzle Battle, and it's premiering right now. Robert, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. As soon as I say go, we both click the start button.
Wait, I have two important questions here.
Yes.
Is there a resign function so when you're behind, you can just give up?
But there is a claim win function, so when I crush you, I can claim the win instead of just waiting for the time to run out.
Okay, and it's most points in a 3-minute battle. That's what we're doing here,
So
right?
just like Puzzle Rush, you solve until you hit 3 strikes or until the time runs out. Just like Puzzle Rush, right? You get to keep solving puzzles. If you're sloppy enough to get 3 strikes, which seems like something you might be today, you will lose based on that. But if you solve more puzzles than your opponent by the time that the clock runs out, you win that match, you earn more season points than other people, and you move your way up the leaderboard. When I say go, you hit the start button.
Enough talking.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I'm ready to go. You ready?
When should I hit start?
Start.
Now?
Now.
All right. I clicked it. Are we battling?
Are you in? Here we go.
Oh.
Robert Hess.
Whoa. This is weird.
This
I don't
won't
like
be the
this.
first time I crush your face at puzzles. Okay? And it won't be the last either. This is Robert and I are both seeing the same puzzles, and we are racing for who can solve them the fastest. The way this works is we race. It's just like chess, except it's puzzles. So naturally, the more talented player wins. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings with that more talented comment. You know I love you.
No, I just thought you were insulting yourself, and it was totally fine.
Okay, that's fine. You keep talking, and I'll just keep winning.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Yep, I know. I know what you're thinking. Is Dan
I'm
really
thinking
already that far ahead of me? The answer is yes.
Are you even ahead of me?
I don't know. I haven't even looked at your time, honestly.
Me neither. It's...
Remember, we're both getting the exact same puzzles, so... Ah! Oh, no!
Got one wrong?
I got one wrong! That's a devastating blow. Ah! That's 2 wrong! No! I have to not get a third one wrong. I
hope you keep getting them wrong, because I'm on a roll here. Call me butter. Oh, gosh.
Oh, I'm so scared. Bishop or Rook, they're both winning. Oh, got it.
Hey, Danny, can I say I love it when you get things wrong? I'm cruising ahead of you.
Oh, darn. You have 27 already?
Yeah, because I'm good at this, and
That's
you're just some guy.
ridiculous. That's ridiculous. How did you have 27 already?
Because some of us are good at puzzles.
Maybe you're
man.
a grandmaster.
It's almost like that, but I'm not sure.
This is so much fun. I have to be honest. This is.
You got something wrong? It really worries me when you cry. Oh wait, do I claim a win now?
So now the way it works is no. So keep solving, because one of the things about the matchups is that the more points you get, the higher up you go on the leaderboard, right? So there's depending on the way you want to play. Some people maybe want to claim wins because they just love the matchup and they want to play their next opponent and beat and bust them up. Some people might continue to try to push their streak as high as possible, because the more points you earn, the higher you get on the season leaderboard. And we will be also launching something that's pretty exciting. I know I wasn't even supposed to tease this, but take that, Eric. You don't own me when I'm on camera. We also have Seasons coming, which is going to be an awesome new feature where we gather and keep track of some awesome stuff you guys are doing in a really cool way that rewards you for your activities, and prizes might be something where then he really has to put me on a chain. Like, you can't just give everyone a diamond membership for winning a season. We'll find out. Anyway, no, I'm kidding. This is something we've been working hard on. We're very excited to premiere. We hope you appreciate that little insight. Puzzle Battles will be live to everyone, a live chess server combined with Puzzle Rush Flair within 2 weeks. So thank you for taking the time to watch this. We will be right back with more Sinquefield Cup coverage.
A premium membership at Chess.com will help you improve your game with full access to a powerful set of learning tools. Unlimited tactics let you practice like a master, with more than 50,000 puzzles to challenge you at every level. Our library of interactive chess lessons, created by master coaches, will enhance every aspect of your game. And after each game you play, the computer analysis feature will give you feedback on every move you played, turning every game into a chance to learn. And that's not all. Premium benefits also include unlimited tournaments, video lessons, the Opening Explorer, and much, much more. Upgrade now to take your game to the next level.
And we are back here with Chess.com's coverage. If you enjoyed that preview into Chess.com's newest feature coming your way within a couple weeks, make sure you stay tuned as we release more updates on that in our beta clubs and everything for the next, as we bring the month of August to a close. And also stay tuned because Robert and I just got into a little bit here off camera, and I think that we might end the show today with a few more puzzle battles. Robert, what say you?
Does the victor have to do the talking? I feel like I let my actions speak louder than my words.
Let's get back to the games. All right. He did let his actions speak louder than his words, and he is amazing. It's fair. Nothing but fair chess happened there, and Robert Hess, you beat me. I got a little sloppy there, but it was a lot of fun. We hope that fans enjoyed it, and we hope that you're all still excited for the fact that round 10 of the Sinquefield Cup is shaping up to maybe be one of the best. I look at the board, the big one here, and we've got Magnus Carlsen maybe in a position to have some winning chances. He has not earned a victory yet at the Sinquefield Cup. So could today be the round? Stick around to find out. Of course, the standings have Dingley Ren and Jan Nepomniachtchi tied for first heading in, and so we're going to start this thing after the break by going to take a quick look at both those games. I think we should start with the one where Nepomniachtchi, just to give a quick summary. It's simplified the way we thought it would, Robert. Black will be pushing from now until Kingdom Come with the extra B pawn. Will it be enough to win? We'll find out. But for sure, the evaluation we made that clearly something got away from Nepo there as he transitioned with this move knight d7, a move that he probably wishes he could have back. He may not be the tournament leader after today's round.
Yeah, I don't think he will be, because this position, even though it's only one extra pawn for Black as compared to the two we thought might happen,
Yep.
Black's king can help push this pawn. So the king can go, say, to b6, and then maybe into a5. And then once the king gets there, the pawn can push to b4. The bishop can then reroute itself from d7 to, say, d5. And then the pawn can push itself to b3. And the pawn keeps pushing. Black is very happy.
Yeah, you highlighted the bishop can go to d5. I was highlighting the bishop could even go to b5 at that point, because at that point a trade of bishops, if the king is really that far advanced and this b pawn is just running up the board, this is going to be an easy win. So obviously being politically correct and polite, as I try to do from time to time, just to prove people wrong by saying that Nepo might not be the tournament leader after this round, I'll go ahead and say it. He's not going to be the leader after this round. But will Dingley Ren still be the leader? We're back to that game where my partner and I have a slight disagreement. I feel like there's just more chances to push here than you're giving Levon credit for. I feel like he parried the lines well. I'm not disagreeing with the main highlight of the structure, as you said, which is that this bishop is the best minor piece of the two, and that it has a very clear target on b3, right? That's going to make White's life difficult. We're on the same page. But the extra pawn is a pawn, right? Thanks, Captain Obvious. It is a pawn. And there are also other weaknesses on the board that just it doesn't make the position easy for Black. Like I see rook g5 maybe is coming. He's going to simplify a little bit. If he does get the knight to f4, will that bring some potential of the d pawn running? It's going to be hard to do it without b3, but there's also the b4 pawn. Maybe rook a4 is on the table. So in the interest of believing Levon Aronian is going to push this one, just like MVL will against Jan Nepomniachtchi, to keep those tournament leaders in check, I'm taking White.
Okay, well, you said he parried the threats. It looks more like Matthew Perry than anything. It was relevant a while back.
And the whole crowd stood in awe when I yelled, Matthew Perry.
I mean, the bishop on d5 is just such a good piece. And I don't know how you expect to kick that bishop out from the d5 square, where it attacks the pawn on b3, puts pressure on g2. The knight on e2 is sort of dominated here. Can't really get to an active square. So I'm not really believing
Twist
in
ending. I'll ignore your bishop and bring my rook to c5, cutting off your queen's protection. You hang the b pawn. We go out for drinks later and just agree not to talk about it.
Well,
what do you think?
One of us is trying to be 17 again. The other
the other looks like he's 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't look at me like that.
Let's go look at the position with Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Fabiano Caruana, because speaking of don't look at me like that, sometimes when Fabi gets focused, he does like, don't look at me, I'm focused, right? But in this position he might need to focus hard, because it looks like Mamedyarov has kind of parried the problems. He's up a healthy pawn. Now I'm twisting my views from before. I like white.
Feels like you're going Tyler Perry on this one, though.
Not quite full Tyler Perry. Never go full Tyler Perry. The rook takes f7 was played after e takes f7. It's looking spicier, which means it's a position where normally the Azeri is at home. He still has to deal with the obvious threat, which is checkmate.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we still believe that my suggested retreat is the best. Right as I say that, Mamedyarov disagrees. He plays h4.
Well, it's a little different now because
the f-files. Yeah, go ahead.
So your idea now, pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, knight e3, that looks to win an exchange, but queen b3 looks really annoying.
Yeah.
As in these lines where you take on f1, so you're taking the rook that you put under attack, how are you going to protect your rook on f7? I guess it's already defended. That's the good news. But the bad news, bishop d5 is a pretty devastating threat.
Yeah, or rook takes f7 first and then bishop d5, which will win the queen. So agreed town, population us. And we were highlighting previously that the knight back to f3 made more sense if you weren't going to try to keep your extra pawn, because taking f7 has drawbacks by Mamedyarov. I mean, it brought the rook to this open file. So while you are now up a pawn as white, if you're just counting the material, you put the rook in a very active spot. So let's say Fabi forgets about taking here, going for the line you just highlighted where he may regret it, right?
Although actually, knight takes f1, rook, we should keep going that line.
Okay.
I feel like maybe we shouldn't stop so soon, because knight f1, rook f1, it looks like a problem for black, but maybe you can go king g7 just to get out of all these pins.
Gosh, this just seems so scary, right?
Because you have no pieces in front of your king. But
you could even trade everything and get a second pawn for the exchange. I mean, I think black is good there, but this is a wild position. But I was going to say, I don't know that black even has to go for that. There's no bishop d5 currently. My queen guards it. You don't have queen b3. So the problem is I don't have a square that really excites me to put the bishop on. But I'd love to just be able to develop, because it's not really about the bishop. It's about getting more pieces into the game. And that was the risk. There was a reason why we were suggesting maybe knight f3 instead of h4 by Shock. It was because we weren't sure that taking f7 was worth the consequences of bringing black's rook to the open file. But,
I really wonder what
he wants the pawn.
Fabiano's considering here, because pawn takes g3, I'm not saying it's forced.
He does
it.
It is. He does it.
Yeah, you're going to have to do it, and he didn't spend that much time, and he is up quite a deal of time on the clock, actually. He's more than double Mamedyarov's time. But this is a very forcing line. We're going to see this knight e3 move, because if you don't play knight e3, you're just down a pawn. That's not a good thing, obviously, for black. So you're going to probably play knight e3, and we'll see this queen b3 line that we've been discussing. And I don't know, does white have more than just compensation for this exchange?
Let's look at the position after king g7 here on the analysis board, because it's looking more and more like you're right, and that's going to be a critical line.
Maybe there's a bishop f5 here, actually.
Yeah, I wanted to put the knight there.
Yeah, that too. That also looks
but obviously trading, if it's just a check and then the rook's double, you got nothing to it. But Robert's idea is a little more creative, because you never, and this is a tip for everyone, you never want to help your opponent complete their development. As long as that bishop is on c8, that means the rook on a8 isn't playing, and if you can get a threat before the queen side joins the fight, then probably you're in good shape. So the problem with my move knight f5 is he could develop with tempi, so to speak. He's taking a piece and completing development, whereas Robert's idea kind of allows the same thing, but the difference is that after takes and knight takes, now you get the knight here with check, and the whole combo is based on the fact that rook takes is met by queen takes b7, I think, right, Robert? I don't like to put words in a grandmaster's mouth, but in this case, I think I'm safe.
Yeah, that looks pretty safe.
So if that's the case, now I'm getting this move with check, so that means you move the king, and I have a...
Wait.
What?
Go back to that for 1 second. I have rook takes f5.
Yeah.
Queen b7. Queen f7. So you have to take on f5 first.
Oh, sick. If you take here, we take here. So you take f5 first, and then take. By the way, it looks like we're getting this variation on the board, so let's keep analyzing it, because we may be indeed looking into the right crystal ball, because as the line goes in the live position, you can see they're getting closer to a line like this. So the whole point is, if you can't trade and you move the king to complete the line Robert was giving, now you gained a tempo. So even if you completed his development, you're on the move, so there's threats like knight h6 check, which is honestly a really good move. It's a fork, and if you take, I make the magic happen. And if you move the king to a different square of safety, maybe there's even moves like this, as slow as that is. I don't know. I mean,
well, then your knight's hanging, but you have similar idea like queen e6
or queen d5 actually maybe does the same thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, this is the live position has us wondering if we're going to be right. But the time management in this game particularly favors Fabiano Caruana. Oh, by the way, have we seen him have a time advantage of 45 minutes at this point in the tournament? I mean, this is given how crazy this position is, and given that we were kind of assuming this was Mahmoud Yar's preparation because he was white and went for it. Look at the clock, Robert.
No, clearly Fabiano is in some kind of comfort zone, but I do think this is trickier for black than it is for white. Yes, white is going to be down material, but there's so many tactics to keep an eye out on, and I'm just like, all these lines are swirling through my head right now of like, and these possible continuations. Can white be tricky with that knight going to f5? As we were just, this is going to happen. Right?
Yeah. The line we just looked at is going to happen. And it is tricky. Maybe Fabiano's going to need every second he's earned on the clock. And speaking of the clock, let's remind everybody of what our daily question was, which is, with Jan Nepomniachtchi being someone who's played so fast and yet has led the tournament throughout, does that change our traditional views in terms of how you need to manage your time, be disciplined in critical moments? We obviously asked all of you to get involved on social media, use the hashtag Grand Chess Tour. We got Robert's thoughts earlier. Here we've got a tweet from S. Gradijan, who says, a local club player plays much stronger than his rating until he gets in time trouble. I think that's pretty much true. And then he plays much worse than his rating. If he learned to play quickly on easier lines, then he would have enough time to avoid his time pressure losses, and my 2-2 record versus him would be 0-4. That seemed like it got oddly personal there for you, S. Gradijan, but I appreciate the insights. Okay. I don't know who you're referring to, but great stuff. We got another tweet here from @NorthcoatBrad. Okay. Yes, if you're taking plenty of time to calculate, assume your opponent's doing the same on your clock. As much as possible, use your opponent's time to calculate. Don't let them use your. I think that's actually fantastic advice. And generally one that Robert and I are big fans of, right? Work hard on your opponent's clock. We look around tournaments sometimes, Robert, and see young players getting up and walking around when you see the best players in the world all focus, whether it's their turn or not, right? Those guys have forgotten more about chess than someone like me will ever know, yet they work harder at the board, right? That's a huge insight in terms of how tricky the game of chess is. So work hard on your opponent's clock. Good advice, Brad. @Poopaz, who's become our regular social media appearance on the show, and like I said, he already's got a diamond membership, but we appreciate him continuing to play even if he's not going to win another one. Yes, timing is everything. Just ask Danny how hard he has to work on the timing of his dad jokes.
It's okay, Danny. It's dad o'clock somewhere.
It's always dad o'clock in this house. King G7, you like that? What are you laughing at?
You.
This one got oddly personal for Danny. What are you talking about? I never get offended by chat. I have never been known to distract a show by personally calling out a member in a chat room who's saying something I disagree with.
You okay there, buddy?
Yeah. All right. By the way, you and I analyzed some deep stuff here, because we are one move away from our full line having been predicted here. Bishop f5 seeming logical, and that's without an engine. You know what that is? That's man chess, human chess. Oh,
Whoa,
we're wrong. Next move.
F7.
The first thing I said was maybe he goes for the endgame. Let's analyze it, because it's something I kind of dismissed because I thought maybe he thinks he has more. But this is, a couple of peshki. A centralized knight, Robert. The biggest drawback is immediately clear, which is that you also have two very weak pawns and a rook who knows how to use his open files, right? But it is compensation on the king's side anyway with these two pawns. Although now as I think about it, maybe he has another move plan on queen takes f7, something like queen b5 to keep the attack going. Actually,
I don't believe in the attack, but maybe queen b5 is...
I like both bishop d5 and queen b5 as ways to kind of keep the dream alive, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess queen d5 does have that really annoying threat of just checking on e5 or g5, and maybe there's bishop h3 after queen b5. Then you queen g5 check.
Well, you know what else I might do? I might even take this pawn then.
Got it.
And that might be a better version of this endgame, right, with the exchange, at least in terms of drawing chances for white. I think you would agree, taking b7?
Yeah.
So if that's okay, but if that's the case, then I might do that on any bishop move. So this actually seems like a potential reality here, that we get a move like queen b5 on the board. Okay, well, we're gonna wait and see how the West is won here or drawn. So many games still going. In fact, all 6 of them. Let's bring back our bird's eye view and remind everybody, if you're tuning in on Twitch, maybe watching this on the front page, give us a follow and then go to chess.com/events or chess.com/live. Both of those platforms allow you to choose your own adventure, pick any one of those positions you see, and have some fun analyzing it. Of course, keep the show going, and Robert and I will try to drive this home. We will also move on now to another game. I'm unclear where to go. I actually think, again, all 6 of those positions are worthy of our fancy. Maybe Sergei Karyak and Vishy Anand deserve some attention, given that these two guys came into this round tied for second place. If we want to bring up the standings there, remind everybody that we've talked about Dingley Ren and Jan Nepomniachtchi, but if a victory occurs in this matchup, one of these two guys might be back in the lead.
Can we just talk once more about how impressive Vishy has been this tournament?
If you want to, we can talk about it. Let's do it.
Every round, I'm just impressed with his preparation.
Yep.
I can't think of a single bad position he's had all tournament, and including this one. He's the black pieces. He's down a pawn. I get it. He's down material. That's not great. But look at his queen on f5, rook on d2, combining to just create so many threats. One of them is the pawn on b2 immediately is under attack, but much more forceful is knight e4, trying to remove the guard of the f2 square and just say to white, your pieces are all in weird territory. So if you go rook c7, for example, to say, I'm going to attack you first. Well, no, I'm going to play knight e4, and I think I can give up my bishop on e7, because once we trade on e7, I'm going to take your bishop on g3.
I was going to say, I don't think you can quite, because I guard g2.
Uh-oh, forgot about that.
Just because queen f2. No, I like the line. I also like those bits there from Rakesh. Thank you for your support and love here on Twitch. So I hear you, and I didn't want to steal your thunder there. I agree. Vishy has been super impressive. Again, I look at this position optically. I do like black as well. But maybe rook c7, we just have to play something else first. In fact, maybe rook c7 is just met by knight d5.
Knight d5 looks better for sure, because then b2 is actually hanging, and you protect e7, you protect f7, so you can move your bishop next. Agreed. You corrected my blunder. Thank you.
Hey, you've done it for me my entire life.
I know, that was a genuine thanks. That was not sarcastic.
No, I know, and this is actually a genuine thanks as well. You have corrected my blunders more times than I can count. All right, no, but so to highlight more of Robert's points, black has pressure here. The pawn on b2, the threat is knight e4, so if rook c7 isn't played, then you're absolutely right that knight e4 is obviously coming, right?
Yep.
And the time also is suggestive. If we just look at the live position here, I mean, The time also backs up your point of how good Vichy has been, Robert. For those of you who maybe haven't followed this event as closely as you're now wishing you did, because this is exciting and we have 10,000 of you with us, Vichy has, at least as far as Robert and I are concerned, played the best chess maybe overall. Now, it's hard to say that as Dingley Ren won a masterpiece yesterday, right, with the white pieces over Fabiano, and scoreboard suggests he's a half a point better than Vichy, but there have been several games that got away from Anand, and the former world champion baffled us yesterday by how quickly the game ended. There might even have been an opportunity to play on, but either way, Vichy is just played amazing chess and is still right there in the thick of it. All right. Well, how does Karyakin deal with this, actually? Because the more I now look at the fact that rook c7 is met by knight d5, I'm running out of candidate moves. If I play a move like b3 because I'm that greedy, here comes your knight e4 move, and this is where Vichy goes to town. You're not even threatening to take g3. You're threatening to take f2, right?
Yep.
But Sergei Karyakin, who challenged for the World Chess Championship title in 2016, for good reason, the guy knows how to play some defense. Defense. He's used to being in bad positions.
Yeah, defense wins championships, but doesn't win chess games. That's the essential question, and I think the answer is no.
It draws chess games.
It's true.
That's what it does. The defense draws chess games, and it wins championships. The guy,
I love Black's position.
I love Black's position too, and Sergei Karyakin will be on defense. The guy that hasn't got enough attention given how popular he is on Twitch, Hikaru Nakamura. Go to twitch.tv/GM Hikaru to see what it's like when super grandmasters crush people. Maybe some puzzle battles coming your way with Hikaru throwing down there in fine fashion. That's going to be great, right? Because we know how good Hikaru has been in Puzzle Rush, but then some other grandmasters who maybe aren't at his caliber, frankly, they memorized a lot of the positions, right? But now that everybody's on the same clock, seeing the same positions in puzzle battles, that could be some throwing down. Could you see Hikaru Nakamura versus the spicy caterpillar, known as Ray Robson?
That'd be fun.
Oh, man, I can't wait. All right, what's going on in this position? Hikaru has seen his kingside threats be parried. He had to retreat the lady. But in compensation, he picked up the bishop pair along the way. Let's go to the back cave and analyze how we got here. You and I left the position, Robert, after knight g4, and we highlighted, for those of you just joining us, that the transition, removing that knight, may have had a plan of increasing white's potential for an attack. But then Geary closes things up, starting with c4, and then knight e7. He plays f5. The position has come completely closed. But in the process of doing so, he's going to lose the bishop pair here on d6. After a6, knight takes. White has a very long-term plan now in a position like this, and f3 starts it. Whenever you have the bishop pair and the position is closed, you'd like to open it up, right? Your dark square bishop does not have a black counterpart, and so if it can get jiggy on any of those color complexes, typically it'll be one of the best pieces on the board. Not even just minor pieces, but that's the goal. That's why you play f3. You're trying to start opening things up, and you might even be creating this e1 route, Robert, to head to the g3 square. Actually, in fact, that's what he did. He played bishop e1. And I don't know, if I look at the live position, I'm not even sure that the highlighting I just did of Hikaru's plan means he's better, because knight g6 preparing f4 makes it hard. But I do think it's an unbalanced position where both sides have chances. So if that's what he was looking for, he does have that.
Yeah, definitely chances for both sides because of the different elements for each side. White has the two bishops, and as you highlighted, the dark square bishop is the real advantage. The light square bishops for both sides are not particularly good. The bishop on b7 is behind a pawn, but it does help stop this e4 plan, which would be useful for white. But what I like about Black's position is just the kind of this spatial control. The pawns from a6 to c4 are really good, and they're just closed down the queen side, and you have an extra one of them on that side of the board. If white could play a3, bishop b4 in one, okay, well, answer that. But I was going to say, if white could play a3, bishop b4 in one turn, it'd be great for white. Not even because you're hitting the rook on f8, but you are making that bishop very useful. But the problem was, if you had started with a3 instead, I think that does give Black some time to perhaps play like a5 and say, well, you're not getting in your bishop b4, and I might play b4 myself. Yeah,
that actually makes me really like Hikaru's bishop a5. Puts the kibosh on the pawns going forward, and he's going to do your plan of a3 and then try to grip the dark squares where they stand. I think the risk of that is now that you've kind of wasted time with your bishop, you went here, you changed your mind, you're going back, is that you highlighted the grip of the pawns, and I thought you were going e-file direction, because these two pawns combined with a threat against the weak e3 pawn. I mean, can you say positional crisis, right? There may be a move like rook a to e8 and f4, and this e3 pawn's a problem. So as much as I highlighted the goal of the bishop pair, and that was a theme in the position, and I liked bishop e1, the moment knight g6 came, and this move wasn't possible, but I mean, by the way, let's show why probably Hikaru didn't do that, is because the response f4. And if you take g6, you'll take g3 with kind of an intermezzo. Now you have to save your bishop, and I'll take h2 check. So that was the tactic that prevented bishop g3, everyone, if you're keeping track. And that worries me for Hikaru, because that means bishop e1 might have been a waste of time. And if he's switching gears, what say you I forget about the queen side and go rook ae8, and I've got my eyes set on a new favorite pawn. Ooh, knight e7, the draw offer.
Yeah, because he doesn't want after rook a to e8 probably to allow queen d2. And then all of a sudden, white really does have full control over these dark squares. And I'm not saying it's that bad for black, because black can just make a move like rook f7 or whatever and say, I'm just going to keep the position closed. It's not clear how white makes progress. But having the bishops in the long run tends to favor the side with those bishops. And as you're showing the analysis.
So 97 is saying, I'm not necessarily offering a draw. I'm also changing gears. If you're going to change gears with your bishop, then I'm going to change gears with my knight and come back to c6 to kick you out.
Yep, and stop you from playing bishop b4. Exactly.
But what if Hikaru plays a3? Now he's sort of got the upper hand in terms of the timing. You may go to c6, and guess where I'm going? Back to e1, back to this ship here, where you can no longer play knight g6 and f4.
You can start with f4, though, right?
a3, knight c6, but if you go f4, aren't you? Oh, d4 is weak.
Yeah.
Shenaniganizer. Don't tell me what you think is going to happen here, Robert. I see those words about to come out of your mouth.
Uh-oh.
I almost told you to put something back in your mouth, but I won't do it. I'm not going to mention what we're about to see here, but at least we understand it. Okay, like, jokes aside about the word that's coming here.
Draw?
I'm talking about the word perpetual, not a word that starts with D. What?
He made a different move.
He did?
Right?
No, he didn't.
Oh, no, sorry. Your board had
No,
bishop
I'm
d2.
analyzing. No, I'm saying the at least we understand it, right? Hikaru trying to flex on the bishop pair, plays bishop e1. Anish goes to Kembe Mutombo, says, you put that bishop there, you're going to regret it. Hikaru says, all right, but if your knight leaves the queen side, I'm going to go grip those dark squares. And he's like, Dikembe Mutombo's back, not in my house. And he's like, well, if I play a3, as Robert pointed out, now your knight there is really good, and I don't want to let you play f4 and undermine my d-pawn, so I'll just come back to e1 and threaten it, and knight g6. And this is why sometimes games at the highest level end peacefully, because both sides refuse to give up on what's probably strategically, to be fair to them, probably the best plan for both sides to execute. Although, I'll give one criticism.
Yeah.
Like, at this point in the tournament, if you play, okay, let's say you play a3 and then bishop c3 to guard d4. Then f4 could be met by e4 in some positions. What?
Yeah, maybe bishop b6 is a little more active, the same idea.
Oh, bishop b6. Even better, come into c5. That would actually prevent f4, because now I'd be skewering the queen and rook and giving the exchange.
Right.
So what goes through the mindset of these guys as I'm sitting here anticipating that the live feed will be updated with a draw any moment? Why not play for more in this position? Is it just because, is it the other way to look at the same glass as half full, half empty? I'm not going to win the tournament anyway. Like, I think this is the best approach, and if he found the best approach, I'll give in. Or is the other way to say it, I'm not going to win the tournament anyway, and I'm tired of this. I'm going to push on this position and try to find a dynamic way to get winning chances, even if it means I'm mixing it up a little bit. Like, Robert, defend their mindset.
I think that there are some long-term concerns for white if you ever push this pawn to a3 that may not seem so visible at first. Like, what, a3, how's that a problem? You're giving my bishop control of more dark squares or giving it a home. So let's say a3 was played, and instead of touching my knight to c6, so you can go bishop b6, I'll start with a move like rook to f6. So similar idea, getting my I was going to go f6 actually, but same kind of idea regardless. Point is that my rook now can actually swing to the king side to be useful with some kind of rook h6 ideas, maybe at some point. But also, if you put your bishop on b4 and I just drop my queen back to d7, then I'll put my knight on c6. Maybe I'll either put my knight on a5 to go to b3, or I'll put my pawn on a5 and play for pawn b4 and use my queenside majority. And the question that I will forever have is, how is white going to make progress when black goes rook e8, maybe even rook to e6? And if your bishop is on c5, you're not actually going to have an easy time protecting the e3 square.
Yeah. Hard to argue with it, and I do appreciate that you highlighted the last sort of positional educational nugget we'll leave our viewers with here, is that the long-term edge of this 3-on-2 should not be underestimated, right? You highlighted that kind of quickly earlier. We went past it. We talked about white's goal to blockade the dark squares, but all of the things being equal, especially if white maybe gets distracted defending weaknesses over here on the e-file, and you can't blockade these pawns, if you cleared everything else on the board right now, use your imagination, see the forest through the trees, black is just winning in the endgame with a pawn advantage, basically. A 3-on-2, right, Robert? This is a pan-off structure reversed from a Caro-Kann, and so I guess that highlights even more why Hikaru may not be so motivated to take the draw. Now, he is thinking, so he hasn't played the draw yet. He repeated twice. We are one move away from this game ending. Maybe Hikaru does get frisky and say, you know what, I do want more. But okay. You made that point earlier. I just wanted to highlight that back, that this 3-on-2 is something you have to keep your eye on. Big potential down the road for black. And so if white doesn't have something to mix it up and to stop that from being the main feature in the position, you're going to be worse in the endgame. So, all right, well, as we wait for that game to either end or not, let's bring back our bird's eye view and get a look at all 6 games remaining, because there are still a lot of them. We hope that those of you that are with us will be here for the rest of the day. We may be looking at a victory for the world champion Magnus Carlsen as he continues to kind of push a slight edge here against Wesley So. He managed to keep one of the rooks on the board from earlier, Robert, and he does still have pressure on the b6 pawn.
Yep. And it's exactly what we were discussing earlier, right? You want at least one pair of rooks on the board, which success for white. And now the d file, black can't use it. There's nowhere to infiltrate to. But on white's, train of thought here, how do you make progress? Mm-hmm. And you can bring your king into the center with king e2, but then what? And I'm trying to figure out that myself, because where does my knight on g2 belong? Probably on d5 still, but now can't black try to blockade the situation? Like, let's say king e2. Actually, I don't really know how black is going to stop white's plan of bishop f2, knight e3, and so on.
Yeah, I actually feel like I was letting you finish that thought because you were answering your own question. It was really cute.
You're like a proud father.
I was like a proud father. Yeah, because as the bishop comes to f2 to guard g3, you no longer worry about the king leaving that pawn. And in doing so, as you said, you free up the e3 square, which brings it to d5. And I think I mean, jokes aside, you would probably be my daddy at chess. I'm not a proud father, but that is a very clear plan. And Magnus begins executing it. And if that knight comes to d5, we are going to have winning chances. So for those of you who may have been waiting, watching, wondering, when will Magnus Carlsen get another victory? As you saw his 2882 rating kind of slide since the beginning of the event. Well, you may be watching it right now. Those who are watching Twitter may have just seen a great tweet from our own @ChessMike, FIDE Master Mike Klein, who says he's got a Sinquefield Cup stat for the day. Fabiano Caruana had more wins in his 2014 event than in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and so far in 2019 combined.
Wow.
That means his 2014 was that good. For those of you who maybe weren't even following chess then, because it was 5 years ago, and there's a very good chance some of you are maybe discovering chess this year or for the first time today here on Twitch, and if so, hit the follow button. Just kidding. But the 2014 event by Fabiano Caruana still goes down as maybe one of the single greatest tournaments ever, right? Maybe the. I mean, the performance rating was that good. Fabiano started the Sinquefield Cup in 2014 with 7 straight victories. His performance rating was through the charts. As they said, this one goes to 11, right? The performance rating was off the chart for Fabiano Caruana, who went on to win that Sinquefield Cup in dominating fashion. So that's how good Fabiano has been historically in St. Louis. He hasn't been that good this year, and even though he has, I think he's won another Sinquefield Cup since 2014. Am I wrong about that?
Tied for first last year with.
That's right.
Levon.
They went to tiebreaks. That's right.
But they didn't play it.
That's right. They also agreed not to play it. Shout out to Fed Rod, who might be my Chess TV chat soulmate. I said Midnight Rhino was my Twitch chat soulmate as far as pop culture reference goes. Every pop culture reference I make, Platinum member Fed Rod is right there. First to yell Spinal Tap. Oh, it feels so good. Feels so good to have someone that gets me. You know what doesn't feel good? Draws.
Draw.
All right, the repetition has occurred. One game is in the books. Look at the game with Mamadjarv and Fabiano. Speaking of the man we just discussed regarding his epic performance in 2014, this move bishop h3 is met by bishop f5. How freaking sweet is that? It traps the bishop in the middle of the board with a tactic on b7 to the Batcave. Let's go to there, so I shall show the fans what's going on. Bishop h3 looks good and threatens queen f1, but Mamadjarv says not so fast and traps the bishop on the square. This is going to force the trade, which after knight takes f5 has to be good for white, because if queen takes, we get the tactic we highlighted earlier on b7 and win the rook. And I'm going to guess this is a queen and pawn ending with at least very good winning chances, if not winning for white.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's. I agree with you. It's
very
not
good winning
yet,
chances, right?
But great winning chances for sure.
And if you don't take the knight and move,
queen
you could get
check.
you get checkmated or you lose queens. So I think you have to go for this.
You could probably go king g. Oh gosh,
Don't you put your king on that square? Don't you put your king on that square, Robert? Check.
King f6.
Check. Check. Where's my mate? Where's my
Doesn't
mate?
exist. Just like the limit. It doesn't
I hate
exist.
Robert. I hate Robert. Where's my mate? Okay, but seriously though, there's no way white loses that, right? That's a good position. So,
it's just one of those positions that if there's no checkmate, the longer the game goes on, the better the chances are for black. But I trust.
But not if your king is being chased throughout the middle of the board and barely surviving the Batman and Robin duo of queen and knight.
I mean, we've all seen Jumanji, right? Everything that's possible comes after you, and once you make it through, happily ever after, right?
Are we talking the Robin Williams Jumanji or the recent one with?
That's the only Jumanji.
Okay, the one with The Rock is pretty good. You know, The Rock is everyone's favorite narcissist. There's something about that guy who just like the more he loves himself, the more we all love him.
Don't you throw that flubber at me?
You don't like Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
I didn't say I don't like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You can't compare the original Jumanji with the more recent Jumanji.
And then you throw the flubber at me, which is a Robin Williams reference. I get it. But
there you go.
I couldn't move off the fact that you didn't like the latest Jumanji. I thought it was pretty good. I mean...
Well, we're seeing in the chat, Moats Art says Wesley blundered. Magnus has knight d5 now. Let's see how accurate this assessment is. Well, knight d5 has looked good for a long time. Oh, wait a second. The pawn c5 is hanging?
Yeah, because of the pin. That's why it's a blunder. The whole point, everyone, is knight d5. I think you're losing a pawn by force. If you go back, I just take it the old-fashioned way.
Yep.
Because I've got 2 pieces on it now. And if you take on d5, I take with the pawn, and how do you stop bishop takes c5? Because the pawn is pinned to the rook. That's a relative pin that you might want to make note of, honestly. And you can't defend the pawn this way, because then you lose this pawn.
You can play rook b7, but something feels...
Rook b7 would defend the rook by the knight, so you put your rook on a defended square. Actually, that looks like it holds.
I don't believe in it, though. Because for starters, I can play king d3.
Okay.
And my next move is c4.
Well, how about I play c4?
Well, then your b6 pawn stinks,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, don't count your chickens, Robert, before they hatch.
Something feels so wrong about this, but maybe it's right.
Hey, you know how I feel about that.
Well, if this is wrong, you don't want to be right.
If commentating with you is wrong, I don't want to be right. If defending endgames, I mean, I don't even have to take the pawn. My king gets back in time.
The knight and c8 hanging.
LOL. 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 Oh, man, that's what cool dads do. They say LOL instead of laughing out loud. We're going to move on and pretend that didn't happen. Back to Jan Nepomniachtchi's game. Will he be able to defend against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave? Find out when we return. It's time to take a very, very quick break here. Chess.com's coverage of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup continues. Round 10, we've got a lot of excitement just up ahead. We'll be right back. We are back yet again with Chess.com's coverage of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup, which, as Robert will tell you, is part of the 2019 Grand Chess Tour. Robert, let's do a quick reset, refresh, and remind the fans. What exactly is the Grand Chess Tour? Take it away.
Well, the Grand Chess Tour features the 12 most prominent players in the universe, and they compete in 8 events, but they don't play in every single one. So in the classical events, all 12 have to compete in. In the rapid and blitz events, the wildcards gain entry for a total prize fund nearing $2 million. And as you see with the schedule, that we've been traveling all around the globe. We started in Cote d'Ivoire. We went to Croatia, France. We spent the month of August in St. Louis, Missouri. Later in the year, we go to Romania. And of course, we conclude in India and then the grand finale in London. So a very global event, as you can see in the leaderboard as well, with the flags of the players, right? We have Magnus Carlsen of Norway, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave of France, Levon Aronian of Armenia, Wesley So, USA, Dingley Ren, China, Caruana, USA. We got a couple Russians there in Nepo and Karyakin, and another American in Nakamura, an Indian in Vishy Anand, a Dutch player in Anishkiri, and finally, Shakir Mamjarov from Azerbaijan. So a very global event. And as you can see, the leaderboard for the Sinquefield Cup, well, Dingley Ren and Jan Nepomniachtchi entered this round with the lead, but I kind of doubt we're going to see both of them in first place after it.
Right on cue, coming back to Jan Nepomniachtchi's defense, if he can do it, against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. It is a struggle, right? The struggle is real when you're trying to defend against an extra B-pawn and you don't have any compensation, right? So this isn't going to be easy for Nepomniachtchi. Again, if you just joined us, you missed it. It was not an opening that we thought would go this way. Jan had a lot of pressure, and we thought that would be in a good spot to maybe even have a chance to extend his lead over the rest of the field. But instead, he blundered with a curious knight move. Apparently, he needs to be working on his knight moves. And no?
Nope.
Working on his knight. Okay. But he did play knight to d7.
This is Saturday Night Fever.
The knight goes where maybe Angels fear to tread here on d7, and after the surprising retreat bishop d6, the rumor has it that he spent a lot of time walking away from the board, even on his own clock. He was pretty dejected with himself after this obvious retreat, ruining his own compensation, and that blunder itself is why he did find a way to get the knight out, but as we can see from this forcing line, it took a couple pawns in order for that to happen, and ultimately, despite even winning back one of those pawns, it didn't matter because the extra B pawn is still a healthy one, and Maxime knows how to use it. He's advancing up the board, gets to B4. At some point here, we're going to see full coordination by the king, rook, and bishop, and I expect MVO to take this one home in the live position. So,
you just go back one move to emphasize why bishop takes c4 was not good for white, is that if a rook takes c4, that king is cut off from the B pawn. So if that king was placed on the B1 square, then perhaps white can consider this. It still would be a very tough endgame, down a clear pawn, but at least the king would be in front of the pawn. Here, with the king cut off from the c-file, the pawn will push, the king can help out, and that pawn will become a queen.
This reminds me of a hilarious story I have to tell about my 7-year-old Hazel, who, as you know, Robert, is learning chess. Sorry to go full dad here, but you'll love this. Appreciate the way kids view things if you look at the analysis board. We were in a position, not like this, but one where she realized she couldn't cross over squares because it was check. Yep. Right? And she recognized the rules of the king being guarded. And so instead, she just moved her king here. And when I asked her, I said, Hazel, why'd you do that? You know you can't do that. She said, well, I couldn't go here because it would have been check. So she just put the king there, right?
I love that.
That's hilarious, actually. So I think I was teaching her the king and queen mate, actually. I was teaching her the king and queen mate, and she recognized she couldn't cross over, so instead she just jumped over the queen's open file and was like, well, I couldn't go there, so I went past that. Anyway, yep. Classic Hazel.
That's normal.
The game that I think we want to go back to, because we left the fans with a lot of excitement as to whether or not Magnus Carlsen will get his first victory. Knight d5 was played, and he did indeed establish c4, where I think we see him in the driver's seat. But I know why you said, whoa, and it's because there's a rook on g7 in the Sergei Karyakin game. I heard that word out of your mouth, and I started spying the boards. I'm like, what does Robert see? What does he see?
Yep.
What's going on with that rook on g7?
I was like, what's going on here? Because there was a capture on g3, but it was with a bishop and not the knight. So if you just go back a couple moves.
Let's analyze. We've got the rook did come to c7, but a move neither one of us predicted. Bishop d6. What? I love it. He's saying, if you take me, queen takes f2 check, the king moves, and this will be the mating net, everyone. You check on the h-file and play g3.
But then knight f3?
Knight f3, and then I don't know. I mean, okay.
Did he have to repeat or something? Like keep going queen h4, queen f2?
Oh, no, he just... Oh, no, he can't move king g7. I thought he could move the king and mate, but then rook takes f7. Or can he? I know, that seems a little suspect, particularly because of this move.
Or e4 check after rook g7 looks...
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you and assume that was not his plan. Okay, but that's so weird. So does that mean Karyakin's playing for the win? Basically, bishop d6 is played, and they're calling each other's bluff, because if bishop takes c6 was nothing, if bishop takes d6, excuse me, was nothing more than a draw. But maybe not. Okay, I don't buy it. I feel like there was mate. You can't go to h1 because queen f1.
No, there's a brilliancy here, I think.
What? No, this is just mate, I think.
Well, I could take on g3 with the bishop.
Yeah, forgot about that retreating move. Although there is knight g4 actually. Because if you take here, I get knight g4, and then I'm guarding f7. So I'm actually not so sure that solves your problems.
Can I still go rook takes f7 maybe? No, queen f3 or something?
Okay, this is nuts. So tell me your brilliancy.
This is above our pay grade, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe e5 to cut the bishop off from the g3 square.
Wow.
So just keep the attack going.
And let's just establish the mate. Not for me, obviously I've already calculated, but for all my friends in chat.
Okay.
Jokes aside, I don't see the mate. Okay, where's the mate? If I take with the bishop, you eliminate me. Where's the mate? Let's establish it.
I actually don't see it. So
I think it is with g3. Okay, if you back up, it's mate on f1, and if you come up, queen f5 and then knight e4, but then the king runs. Like, where's the?
Maybe there's no mate. Maybe it's just still some kind of draw. Like maybe the queen h4, queen f2 is just the safe way to do it. I tried though.
This is going to be worthy of someone now. Something tells me Vishy has more than this. And again, you and I refuse to pull up the engine. We are nothing if we are not men of principle.
But doesn't the game just look better for black than these lines? Like forcing a draw looks better than what's happening.
Well, that's what I interrupted my own sentence there, because what I was going to say is, if what you just said is true, and Karyakin actually believes that he's better, then that would be the only reason to play the move rook takes f7 in the game. Because if what you're saying is true and black does have nothing more than a draw, then Karyakin would go for it if he thought he was worse. So he must have calculated rook takes f7. But I agree with you. If we look at the live position, I feel like black is going to get something here.
So let's do a quick material count. 2 extra pawns for white. But the knight on e1 is stuck. So what can black do? Like rook f8, you might go rook f7 on me, won't you? Ugh. That's annoying.
Oh, man. Nicholas Zhang in the Chess TV chat just gave us the winning line. Your e5 idea is there, so I have to show it. If bishop takes, queen takes f2, king h2, e5, cutting off the bishop. Why is it a threat? Well, Nicholas Zhang in the Chess TV chat just showed us why. You get the move g3, force the king up. After queen f5, king takes, you play queen g4, queen h4, walk the king all the way back, and then knight g4, and it's over. You can't stop queen h2 and queen h1 mate, and if you move the knight to try to do so to stop queen h2, we go back to f2 and g2. Bob's your uncle.
Go back one move. So, okay, no, knight g4. queen. Oh, I was going to queen b8 check, but now I'm not so sure. Rook takes f7 check. E6 check. Queen, like even if I go queen f4 here. I'm not saying white's better, but at least I'm not getting checkmated yet. I don't know. It looks too crazy. I can't.
Yeah, there's also the move. No, it doesn't work. I thought maybe there on queen b8 there was rook d8, but there isn't because just rook c8.
Right, and there might just be
there's no win.
A draw.
But
again.
I still agree in that line. I mean,
oh, wait, that was winning for black.
What?
After rook c8? No, that line you just went for it. Rook d8, rook c8, queen f2, queen f1's mate.
Oh, duh! I forgot there was another mate threat. I was thinking this way, but this is the other mate threat.
It's
wow.
complicated.
What a brilliant game right now. If you're just tuning in, we're analyzing obviously what you see, Sergei Karyakin versus Vishy Anand. But this move, rook to c7, was met by bishop d6, a sacrifice to potentially remove the bishop and induce the lines that we've now been analyzing for the better part of 5 minutes. And Karyakin plays rook takes f7. So it's not so much that he played rook takes f7 thinking he was winning anymore. It's maybe because he realized correctly that bishop takes d6 was less than ideal. And that means bishop takes...
Scary.
Well, that means, okay, if we look at where we stand here in the live position, you asked for a material count. You forgot that I refuse to do math on these shows, so count them yourself.
Thanks, partner. That was just, we teammates here. Helping
Just
each other
kidding.
out.
The material count is white is only up a pawn, so that's the thing. I mean, two pawns, but e3 is about to fall. So if queen f2 and queen takes e3, like that is just also like a straightforward way to play the position that actually threatens to win the rook at the end of the line, because queen h6 would be a double check.
Right. So queen f2, king h2,
Okay.
queen 3, maybe rook g6, stopping your check and threatening queen g7 checkmate, and your rook on maybe knight f6. Excuse me.
That's a problem.
This position is crazy.
But how big of a problem is it?
Wait a second. We have results, by the way. 2 of them just came in.
What?
Yeah.
Jan
Two results.
Nepomniachtchi has already lost. Let's do it. Back to the live games. Jan Nepomniachtchi throws in the towel kind of early. I said what, and you heard it. That wasn't me, like, I don't know, faking a what. Okay, that was a real what. Aronian drawing Dingley Ren is not as surprising. We've kind of kept that one off to the side. I guess, it didn't, unfortunately, prove to be any spicier than I thought it would be. Or, actually, it was less spicy than I thought it would be. Robert was right that a peaceful result was in store there for a while. But why resign so early here? Is it really that simple already? Maybe it is.
Yeah, well, he resigned because he has to trade the rooks off. And once he trades the rooks off, the bishop and b pawn are going to just help each other promote. The king will go to d4. And the b pawn actually might just be used as a decoy.
Yeah.
So once I get the king to d4,
we'll just show it. So trading the rooks, bishop moves somewhere. Actually, bishop moves somewhere would be a huge blunder, because then bishop a2 and you can't defend b3, b2 anymore.
Well, you'll have to bring your king back, yeah.
So let's say you make another move, although all of these moves make it easy, just to show everyone that the king comes in, and at some point b3 and b2 will force this king to run, which will likely just lead to a very easy victory of gobbling up all these pawns.
Yeah, and bishop, you can also just force the bishop trade. There's no way white can stop it. So after these lines, you put your king on d4, you put your bishop to e4, and then you threaten to either trade the bishops or push the b pawn. So you can put your pawn on b3 first, and then just, start trading things.
So if we play tickle just to show the setup Robert's talking about, pawn gets to b3, the king continues to tickle, which would be losing to this anyway, but just to really show the straightforward threat. If that's the idea, there's no way to stop the trade. Then the b pawn is a true decoy in king and pawn ending fashion. For some reason I can't. Oh, that's because black to move. LOL.
I was watching the pieces that keep going back.
You're like, let's let him struggle here and see if he figures it out.
Yep.
Just like we're gonna let him keep fighting his way through that one. Dingley Ren in clear first right now after fighting his way to a draw and watching his co-tournament leader lose as white to Maxime Vacher-Lagrave. Jan Nepomniachtchi goes down. Dingley Ren gets the peaceful result, which we're now going to bring up and show how that one ended, since they both hit the books quickly. So not really a lot of mystery here. If we back up, again, I was sort of hopeful. Sometimes that's my job, to play the innocent, ignorance is bliss, lesser understanding chess player, to say, no, there's a chance. And Robert says, silly international master. Grandmaster C draw. It's not that hard. Black's just going to sit tight. White can't make progress. I was hoping for some way to, like I said, undermine the b4 pawn. He goes queen e3, and after h6, rook g4, he wants to hit g7. And I don't know. I mean, I look at this thinking maybe he was trying for something, but as soon as the queens leave the board, I give up on all hope that White has real winning chances here. So,
yeah.
What about my idea, by the way? What if you did, instead of queen e3? What if instead I played rook a5? Just humor me.
Okay, I will humor you, and I will play, I don't know, rook f6 maybe? Maybe not. I don't have to, but...
What if you do the
sure,
same thing you did in the game, let's just say?
Okay.
And then I go rook c5.
Right, that's why I want to play rook f6, so you could blunder with rook c5, and then I would go bishop takes g2.
Uh-huh. But it doesn't work if the rook's on the 5th rank, everyone, because I just take here. So you played rook f6.
Trying to, keep my pieces protected. I do like your idea better, though. Something about it feels right. Like, it just feels better to put the rook there. It might give you a potential outpost.
I like it.
Maybe,
I can't play it, but I want it still. What if I play
I mean, honestly, Black, instead of rook f6, could have played queen f6, just to protect the rook and to hit f2 and things like that as well. So White's position is quite loose.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah. In fact, this is kind of really irritating.
Yeah. It's that arrow. Look at it.
Look at that. It's a trident.
Yeah. Well, that's not a trident. That's just an arrow.
No, it's a trident. Trident pointing upside down.
Oh, I guess it is. Yeah, I'm looking at the other. Yeah, that makes sense.
Don't tell Poseidon what he can't do. All right, so unable to find the compensation, or the way to coordinate to avoid Black's compensation. This one does eventually peter out. I guess we will finish the line then. So queen e3 was played. I guess once the queens came off, I lost my interest, so sorry for taking away the thunder of showing all of you the rest of the game, but I'm just not surprised, because once the ladies depart, the material is equal, and the rest is just a matter of simplification. They would have agreed to a draw already if it were in the rules of the Sinquefield Cup to just offer the extension of the hand, but instead you have to repeat 3 times, and that's exactly what they did here. So, with that game in the books, you can see there right below us, the current situation in round 10 is that 3 games are over, 3 games remaining. The biggest story of the round is obvious. Tournament leader Jan Nepomniachtchi lost with the white pieces to Maxime Vacher-Lagrave, and that's going to leave the door open for some others to get involved. Does Magnus Carlsen finish his event with 2 victories in a row?
Well, let's first things first. Let's see if he can convert this one. It does look winning for him right now.
Yep.
Played d6, and this actually reminds us of the game between Maxime Vacher-Lagrave and MVL from the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, because he had this similar ending with 2 connected passed pawns, and you can start pushing them down the board. And the problem is, Black can't possibly deal with them. You're going to go e5 check, and then you can push the d pawn because the king is away from the rook on e7, and then you can push the pawn to e6, and then you can push the rook to e8 and promote. So it's actually usually a very straightforward path where you have connected passed pawns with a rook.
Yeah, the way you responded with, well, he's got to win this one first, I was like, does Robert see some easier way for Wesley So to defend than I do? But it looks...
He resigned.
Oh, he just resigned. Okay, it's over. Magnus Carlsen has won a chess game for the first time in St. Louis since the Sinquefield Cup started. So, wow. The way you said that, I was like, does Robert see a defense here? Because your tone confused me, which rarely happens. I mean, you rarely throw me curveballs anymore that I don't just hit out of the park. But every once in a while, you're capable of one. That was both a double torture for you. The baseball reference, Let's back up and show how it happened, though, because when we left the game, the claim was Wesley So had blundered trying to defend this position with the move knight to e7. This move seems normal as a way to try to deal with the fact that white wants to put a knight on d5, but the problem is it undefends the rook, which actually makes knight d5 even stronger, because now there's a trick due to the fact that the b6 pawn is pinned. I think what Wesley missed, Robert, and I bet you agree, as I bet he got this position, because if you remember, he played knight e7 kind of quickly. I think he finished the relocation of the knight to d6, where he kind of assumed mentally that was going to keep the knight on e3 in check for a couple moves because of the c4 pawn, right? He was thinking, okay, I got the knight to d6, now the knight on e3 is stuck to guarding c4 for at least a couple moves, and he played knight e7 and just missed that knight d5 was coming, and you don't have time to take here. What do you think? You buying that blunder?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what his thought process was like. I usually blunders are easier to explain than this one. I guess I'll put it that way, because you're right. Maybe it is tied to the c4 pawn, but I don't know. Something feels very odd about this because
it's a tough position for black anyway, right?
For sure.
I don't know. I feel like between the two of us, I'm more the expert on why and how people blunder. Just saying. So, I think I'm jokes aside. You make better moves than me, and I actually do think that the maneuver that was started here, because if you go back a few moves and really look at the psychology of this position, this knight was on h5, holding g3 in the hopes that was going to stop white from the plan that Robert actually prophesized when we were in this position, to remaneuver, guard g3 with the bishop, so that e3 is available for the knight to head to d5. So I think that Wesley anticipated this plan was coming and thought that if he got the knight to d6 to hold c4, that would sort of keep the plan in check for a little bit. And after completing it, I'm guessing he just kind of played too quickly and dismissed knight d5 as a threat. But the moment it's played, you suddenly realize you don't have time to take here, obviously. And maybe the fact that the pawn is pinned is part of that oversight, because he played knight e7 quickly. Now, after the trade, he was forced to play rook b7, as we thought he would. This move, for the record, stops bishop takes c5, because the knight defends b7. He got f5, but the position is actually a lot easier than it looks for white, because black can't really just sit tight. Everything is frozen. If the knight moves, then the rook isn't defended, Robert, and bishop takes c5. If the rook moves, then the rook isn't defended, and bishop takes c5. If you just sit tight, eventually there's going to be tactics. The bishop can go to e3, hit h6. So Wesley tries to get aggressive while he can and force a rook-ending transition. But it actually just a very, very straightforward cleanup, because as Robert said, these connected passers are better than disconnected passers. You heard it here first, kids.
And if you go back to that moment right before rook f7, you made a great point, Danny, that black's pieces are stuck. And not only that, the pawn e5 is also a target. So white can just play bishop e1 to c3 and then say you can't possibly protect your e5 pawn. So if, let's say you make the move king f7 or whatever, bishop e1, I'm just going to put my bishop on c3 no matter what you do, because I'm threatening bishop takes a5 in the same way I was threatening bishop takes c5. So I'll just scoop one of your pawns off the board there, and then b6 is next.
That's a great point. So once you establish a winning plan for your opponent, it's very difficult for top players to just sit tight and say, beat me over the head. They will always choose the more aggressive defensive approach to try to make their opponent calculate at the very end, even if they know it's losing. That's what Wesley does. Unfortunately for him, he's playing Magnus Carlsen. And I feel like we should stop for a second before the Twitter storm starts, because people are going to be talking about Magnus Carlsen getting his first victory here. I expect that to be all the rage with the hashtag Grand Chess Tour if you want to get involved, or hashtag Sinquefield Cup. People generally tend to look at Magnus Carlsen with a microscope, but this is your last chance to get involved with that hashtag before the Magnus talk takes over as he gets his first win in the Sinquefield Cup. What's your answer to our daily question? How to manage time? As Robert said earlier, it's very position specific. That's actually one of our options if you hold your mouse over the Twitch extension. But here we have an answer from at Kalo Kikyle. Kalo Kikyle. It sounds like a version of kale that might also be helpful in like a keto diet kind of approach. I don't know. Yes, it allows you to focus more time on the critical moments when finding a single square can win you the game. Yes. Wesley So once said that you should quickly play your opening prep so that you can spend more time ensuring that your calculations are correct. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely critical, as I've learned from painful losses where I held the advantage for much of the game only to squander it away in time trouble. Hashtag guilty. Raise your hand if you're guilty. Come on, Robert. Are you guilty of that? Are you guilty of squandering an advantage in time pressure?
Of course I am.
Of course you
Everybody's
are.
guilty.
Okay, guilty. We're all guilty of that. Thank you for being honest on Twitter. Doesn't happen with many people these days. Someone asked RB Ramesh for playing tips and time trouble. His reply, why drink poison and ask for surgery? Just don't drink the poison. It's a great thing. Basically, avoid the time trouble. Can we get that guy a Diamond membership? We make a note. That was a great one.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
And
whoever that
RB
last one was that led to the guilty. Sorry, go ahead.
RB Ramesh is a very famous coach.
Yep.
From India, but let's also go to the game between Vishy Anand.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of famous from India.
The game is ending, so we are seeing a repetition between these two players. You'll be okay. You'll be okay, Danny. You're just like a child. You okay there? Well, he went rook f2 to go rook f1 check, and then queen h5 checkmate, right? To kick the king to the h5.
Yeah, he did. Sure did. Sure did go for checkmate, and then snatches stale mate from the jaws of defeat. Thank you, Lafayette. Gives up the rook on f2. I guess there was nothing better.
Yeah, the knight's coming to f4, and you're going to get the black king checkmate if you don't take it.
Yeah, let's show that. So you have to take knight for rook, and now you're settling on the perpetual as much as you'd love to have Venus flytrap fantasies here, or some other form of a mating net. There is nothing good on knight f2, because after king h2 and check, now you'd have to take on g7, and I'm guessing the rook ending was just not in Anand's favorite list of positions to play, because white's up a pawn, and there's not really much else to do for black. So going for the rook ending with this queen check on h6, whether via my suggestion of the Venus flytrap version or in the game, is not something we can really blame Anand for not doing, because even here, white's up a pawn. If anything, black's king is probably weaker than white's now. And okay, so as much as precise chess play leads to peaceful results at times, that's exactly what we had here. I'm already thrilled with this round. We got a couple decisive victories. I feel like I'm playing with house money at this point, right? Given how many draws we've had in this tournament. So I'm already happy. World champion Magnus Carlsen gets on the board, and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave puts a damper in Jan Nepomniachtchi's plans to win the Sinquefield Cup, shaking things up. We've got, what do we have? We actually have
just one game
only
left.
One game remaining, and that is the one between Shakhriyar Mamedyarov and Fabiano Caruana. So we get closer to you and I throwing down in puzzle battles as soon as this event is done today.
And I think we're about to see this one conclude, because if you go queen takes b7 check, king h6, queen takes a8, some kind of queen takes g3, and something tells me this will be a draw.
You really don't think there's a lot of winning chances here, huh?
No. Some kind of queen g2 and just...
Sometimes I try to test you with your sarcasm meter. I know that everybody from New York, their sarcasm game is strong, but sometimes I got to keep you in check.
Well, you know, you're going to keep the white king in check, because queen e1 check would have just resulted in a repetition.
I keep wanting to make someone's move when it's not their turn.
Yeah, just queen e1 check, and I'm going to check you Forever.
Forever.
Nope, that wasn't the check.
Yeah, but
Queen,
that's also
Queen,
possible.
But Queen G3 check was the check that I wanted to check you forever.
I understand what you wanted. I was trying to point out that maybe Black could do something that makes this game go on and keeps me hanging out here with all my friends on Twitch instead of ending our day.
I don't know how you want me to respond to that.
I want to keep playing with my friends. Mom?
You are a child today.
This has been quite the day. Let's bring up the standings and remind everybody where they sit. I saw a couple questions earlier. What does that victory do for Magnus Carlsen's chances to get back in the thick of things? It does a lot, right? As much as the draws have been criticized by fans and sometimes people look at it as, hey, where's the decisive chess? As we say, I mean, it takes a lot of accurate chess by both sides to end a game peacefully. Magnus Carlsen has managed to do that and puts himself in a position to potentially still win the Sinquefield Cup. We're going to find out the pairings in the last round so we can preview while we have you who they play tomorrow. I actually don't know who Magnus has on the docket tomorrow. We'll bring that information to you shortly. But with Dingley Ren owning a half-point lead over 4 players sitting at 5.5, it's I think we're going to be in for a thrilling finish tomorrow. So make sure you clear your day. It's Wednesday anyway. Nobody really works on Wednesday. It's hump day. Hump day? Robert, tomorrow, what day is it?
Wednesday.
What day is it tomorrow?
28th.
What day is it tomorrow?
Midway between Monday and Friday.
Come on, Robert. What day is it tomorrow?
Wacky Wednesday?
Hump day? Hump day tomorrow. The move knight at 5 check. Take that, Robert. Mamajarov also wants the day to continue so that I can keep playing with my friends on Twitch. He doesn't want to draw. I love it.
I don't love it.
I love it. Let's show why. If you take f5 now, I take b7, and we get that queen and pawn ending we showed earlier where white will indeed maintain good winning chances. These are 2 extra pawns and likely a very clear way out of the perpetual. Oh, wait, if you go too far, you might actually lose. Okay, so that's why you never go full Danny. Everyone knows that. But then the queen goes to e6. So, frankly, even this line is probably just a dead draw. So knight f5, queen takes f5 is, unfortunately, not really going to do much to change the potential outcome here. If I had to guess,
it's going to force that outcome.
We've got the pairings that we will announce to you. We're not going to give them to you visually at this time, but tomorrow Magnus Carlsen will have the black pieces against Maxime Vacher-Lagrave. So black is hard to win, but MVL has a fighting, very enterprising style. So if you're looking for a matchup that maybe creates a fighting affair for Magnus, look for tomorrow. Dingley Ren has the white pieces against Shakhriyar Mamajarov. That's also an interesting one that doesn't guarantee a peaceful result, because even if Ding is white, Mamajarov is known to do some crazy things. So, Robert, we got Dingley Ren versus Mamajarov. The other guys in second place, Jan Nepomniachtchi plays Anish Giri. He will now have the black pieces. Fabiano Caruana plays Sergei Karyakin. So, that should be an interesting one. Anyway, Dingley Ren at 6, 4 players at 5.5, and we can't have more than 4 because Mamajarov's not going to win this to get to 5.5. I mean,
right. If one of these players win, then they get to 5.5, but we're about to see a lot of checks, and a draw is going to be agreed because the A pawn is so strong that even though white's up a pawn, I don't think that anyone except for black can play for a win.
Kapanon, you're not going to stay for the puzzle battles? Who do you think is commentating tomorrow?
I'll give you 2 hints.
But you're only going to need 1.
Just me saying 2 hints is all he needs.
Yeah. Stick around for puzzle battles. It's coming up. Going to be a lot of fun. We'll dive in for a few rounds of this, probably until Robert beats me enough that I just decide to go home. That's the truth.
What do you think about Giri versus Nepo? I think that this is a very dangerous game for Nepo tomorrow because Giri gets the white pieces. Anish would really love his first tournament victory and
be a
go back to
spoiler.
even score. Nepo just lost this game and played quite badly. He also played badly out of the opening against Wesley before then converting very nicely in the queen end game. So I think Nepo is in a bit of tricky territory, dangerous territory, and would, well, I don't know how he plays solidly. I've never seen him really play solid chess, just like, he likes to play the Sicilian and get adventurous positions. So I think Anish should prepare well and prepare for a fighting game, and I think he has the advantage in that one.
Yeah, I like how you foreshadowed that. I got to be honest, because Anish, also someone who's gotten heat at times in his career for draws, but we know these guys are very, very strong, and I think Nepo having the potential tilt factor going for him after losing that game is going to have to recover himself emotionally. And if he gets too, if Nepo gets too crazy or makes some decisions, maybe emotional decisions, look for Anish to end this thing on a hot streak.
Yep. And this, speaking of ending things on some kind of streak, this will be a streak of checks, and there they start. We'll go check, 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 check.
Bobby's night in Chess TV US, why the hearts? Because of all the love. Just so much love going around, I have to share it. So I'll share some on Twitch too. People are like, I want some hearts.
All right, it's about to be that repetition. Queen C2, Queen F5, it is.
Yep. And we're about to have puzzle battle.
Are we? I thought my day was done.
Dude, you're going to love puzzle battle. Plus, there's a secret challenger maybe there. So if you end up not getting a game, I'll let you go. But otherwise, you sit right there.
I love that face you make as if you're getting tough. It's like weird.
Classic.
Like the guy in the mask who hits the golf ball off Jim Carrey's mouth at the beginning and then becomes evil dude, and you just aren't really that intimidating, but you just are putting on a face, and so I'm supposed to be intimidating.
That was an oddly specific reference. I mean, of all opportunities to reference someone kind of being puffed up, I mean, that was why go, Jim Carrey mask reference? I don't even know.
Because The Mask is a great movie. I
mean, okay. Right? If you're looking for movies where Cameron Diaz doesn't disappoint, I'll give it to you. If you're looking for movies where special effects were not as needed to just let Jim Carrey's humor shine, why are we, keeping these comedians down? He doesn't even need a mask to be that funny. I mean, Milo's the best part of the movie by far.
You trying to be yes man?
I'm trying to take you out in puzzle battles right now. The game has ended in a draw. The Sinquefield Cup round 10 comes to a close. Let's remind everybody of what that does to the standings. Dingley Ren will have his he will control his own fate tomorrow. With 6 points, a draw will guarantee a tie for first if we want tie breaks. If he ends up with a win, then he punches his first major tournament victory home, as Robert said. This is really Dingley Ren's kind of coming out party here, where he's never won an elite event despite being world number 3, at least not close to this caliber. And look for the man from China to be in control of his own destiny, and a whole lot of other people trying to stop him. So we're ready. We are ready for puzzle battles. I'm gonna bring it up and quickly change that scene because I lost the last one. I don't want people to see, I lost the last one. Last time I played puzzle battles with Robert Hess, don't look at it. I'm like my 3-year-old when I'm throwing a tantrum. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Because you know how 3-year-olds think that if they can't see you, they're invisible? Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
I'm looking.
All right, here we go. You ready? Press new 3 minute. In 3, 2, 1. I have to play better this time.
Is it me versus you again?
Yep. You wish it wasn't.
That's true. I wish I got someone better to compete against.
You're hurting me. You're hurting me by being so honest about how bad I am.
Just think of me like a chiropractor.
Okay.
It might hurt a little bit, but you need it.
Right, I need the adjustment. Oh, that was a great reference.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
No, but you don't even understand why I got it wrong. This is, I don't want to say the word. That is just ridiculous. I essentially pre-moved because the position was so easy.
I was going to say, I'm super nervous now because I'm assuming, I don't even know what's going on here. I'm like assuming I'm about to get one wrong, but you made a mouse slip. That makes me much happier because it means I have a chance to beat you.
They're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance. I'm saying you're not perfect, Bobby Hess.
I've never been perfect.
Knight G3 was mate!
I love it when you
You got that one right, and I didn't. I just assumed it was perpetual. I turned my head. That hurts so bad. Of course Knight G3 was mate, Danny. God, why do you suck so bad, bro?
Why are you so hard on yourself?
Why are you not hard enough on me? I don't deserve your love anymore. I just missed mate in 1. So frustrated.
You freaking out makes me a little scared.
I know.
I'm worried. I'm concerned about your well-being.
That was so frustrating. Okay, I have to be very careful here.
Be careful, Danny. Watch out. What is this position?
What is this position?
I actually have no idea. Oh no. It simultaneously makes me happy and sad when you get things wrong. Because we are competing, right?
There's a very confusing yell because it's like, was I about to go fiesta, or was I about to just cry?
What was that? That was so loud and just not cool.
All right, so Danny, are you ready to?
Oh wait, you already
face
got all
off?
3 wrong?
Oh yeah, he totally imploded.
All right, well,
Don't
I'm
say
just gonna
I
sit here.
imploded.
I'm not even gonna claim a win. I'm just going to.
Fine, I'm gonna find somebody else to play then.
No, you can't claim a loss, can you?
I'm claiming somebody else as my opponent.
Secret opponent. By the way,
I wish I could
guess
put
I
somebody
get to
else as my
talk now that it's
partner.
not so- Look who it is!
Mr. Creekor, the man who holds down our Portuguese coverage on a regular. For those of you who don't know, Chess.com has also had full coverage at twitch.tv/ChessComPT. PT being code for Portuguese. This is my chance. I gotta own it and try to beat Creekor to make up for my failures against Robert Hess, and they are many.
Well, Mozart says, firstly, what a username. But second of all, can we watch this from your point of view, being mine instead of Danny's? I assume that would be a more pleasurable viewing experience.
Yeah.
Come on, Danny. Don't get it wrong.
Are you commentating now on me?
I am. Look at that tactic by Danny Rensch. He sees all. No.
Why was that? I don't understand why that wasn't the move.
Danny, that was like an 800 rated puzzle. Come on,
I bet
man.
it was. I bet it was.
Come on.
I bet you're happy about that, Arn.
Let's go. I see your nervous mouse, but you're doing a good job. You got this. Let's go, Danny. Oh, look at that queen check and scoops up the bishop.
Robert is practicing for commentary on a monster truck show.
Look, I need to practice to do that. Danny is a boss right now. He's the bee's knees, everybody. Bees don't even have knees.
Yeah, this one does.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Look at the tactical awareness. Just do it, Danny. Trust yourself.
Trust yourself before you rush yourself? Puzzle rush.
Puzzle rush.
Trust yourself before you rush yourself. Why? Queen A4 was good. It was good.
No, it wasn't Queen A4 either. But I respect your effort anyway.
Thank you. Thank you for respecting me as a person.
Let's go, Danny. You're keeping it close. Yes, yes.
Has he even lost any? Has he even got one wrong?
No, but he's not doing them that quickly. So keep going. Keep going. You got this. No!
What the freak was Queen G5? What is wrong with you, Danny?
You were so nervous. I could see you nervous.
He took the right approach against me, which is to be disciplined, knowing that I will self-implode inevitably.
Are you okay, Danny?
So one of the things that's a little frustrating is the way I play chess, and I don't know what else to talk about when I have 5,000 people watching. You know.
We could watch Hess and Krikor go at it if I pull up Krikor's stream on the show here. We could totally do that.
Hess, you want to throw down against Krikor to bring us to a close?
Not really, but I will for you.
Thank you.
So sweet.
My wrist kind of hurts.
We'll bring
My
up Krikor's
eyes-
stream. We'll keep me on green screen here so I can smack talk against you guys.
My eyes hurt from watching you just fail at those puzzles.
Like, why would you even say that?
Because my heart hurts for you. You know?
Ah.
I don't think we should show everybody your private Slack messages.
Yeah,
Can we
you should
not though?
Probably figure this one out a little bit.
Can we like not?
Let's not show everybody the information you keep intentionally off screen.
That I try to hide from you.
That you try to hide, not just from me.
There
Oh
we
man.
go. There we go.
You don't like the
Krikor-
shirt, Fastilla?
I'm confused. What?
Either Krikor's frozen.
No, he's not frozen. He's just in deep thought.
He's just so surprised by how badly I played. Right?
Or he's frozen. It could be one of those things.
He does look kind of frozen.
Do the old refresh.
I'm gonna guess he was frozen. Let it go.
Oh, he's
let
moving.
it go.
Can you be more like Olaf?
Don't hold it back anymore. Let it go. Let's put on a show. Let's go down some puzzle battles more.
Wait, so I need to know when I'm supposed to start because
Like right
Krikor and
now.
I- No, but do I press start right now?
Click new 3-minute match.
I'm at the home page, like start. So I'm gonna press start. And is Krikor gonna be my opponent?
Yeah, he is very nice.
Okay, well let's see Krikor come up then.
Tis your old Uncle Sasha here to commentate on a Brazilian versus an American. It sounds like a nightmare I had once. Okay, here we go.
Yo, I am so
Okay.
hyped for this right now.
I'm hyped for it. I can actually observe too, which other people can't see, but I can. I can do it. I can observe.
Don't you do it. I'm getting all nervous.
Oh, look
Danny.
how this is going to be such a close match.
How about you stop making both of us nervous?
We should preview the observe. We should. No. This is so freaking cool.
Don't you dare.
Don't you dare
Dude, like,
do it, Danny.
we're not going to show anything else, but show how awesome this is going to be for the new
You
Puzzle
don't
Battles
know
Championship
who
coming.
I have to answer to if we do that.
I know, and I will answer to him directly right now and tell him. Where
You're
is
so
he?
distracting, but I like you anyway. Whoa, there's so many pieces hanging.
Dude, we have to show this. Like, get it on the preview screen. They won't know that's coming, and I'll get Dallon's approval. This is friggin' amazing.
We're tied, and
This
you're
is
so
so
distracting.
hyped that I can actually commentate. This is gonna take our exciting events to the highest level.
Yeah, but only I can hear you. This is like the worst possible scenario. And he got one wrong.
Dude, you're doing great. You just focus on your chess.
Especially with you in my ear, I'm doing exceptionally well.
Oh, it's true actually. I am rather distracting.
All right, let's go.
And then just slide me over the middle, yeah?
Oh, wrong check.
Oh, you got one wrong.
Yeah, I know. I just said a wrong check.
Oh my
Gosh, you
god,
make me
this is
feel
going to be
worse
so
about my
much fun to
mistake.
watch these guys race. We see them getting the puzzles at the same time. Come on, Arn,
Do
throw it
you?
up. We're good.
You want me to do it now?
Yeah. While they're playing. Look how awesome this is. I can literally see these two guys racing neck and neck. They have the same puzzle on the board right now.
Oh, I don't
Oh,
like that I
Robert,
can
you
hear
blundered. You can't get another strike.
Thank you, Danny. Or should I call you Captain
Dude,
Obvious?
you're still fine. You've got a minute, and you're literally tied. Like, you're getting the position a split second after him.
Yeah, but you're so distracting. I just want to be left alone. That's all I ask
Dude,
for. in this
you're
world.
up. You're up. You solved that position before he did. Don't get it
Yeah.
wrong.
Of course I did. That's not my concern. My concern is you in my ear.
Hey, you're going to be concerned about something else in your ear here in a minute.
Okay, well, that sounds inappropriate.
I meant you're going to get a mouthful. I don't know where you were going with that.
Oh, that checkmate was
Dude,
sweet.
that was nasty. You're up 2. 15 seconds. If you don't get it wrong, if you don't...
Oh,
no! You got it wrong! Okay, wait. He still has to get one more right to beat you. He only has 8 seconds.
Yeah, but he's in the easy one.
He only has 8 seconds. He hasn't gotten it. He's got to get Queen 2 and King
He
of 7.
He got it.
Oh, dude. He beat you at the last freaking second. He solved that puzzle.
I wasn't even looking at time. I'm listening to you.
Dude, it's your own fault. You didn't have to get that wrong.
I didn't have to get it wrong, but you're in my ear. He has such an advantage.
He does. He has a huge advantage. Anybody that doesn't have to deal with me commentate, but look how awesome that freaking observe mode is. We're going to be watching Hikaru Nakamura and Ray Robson throwing down in a way that has never been done before. I'm so freaking hungry right now. I'm in a sugar drop. I have to go. We have to end the show. I'm starving. Robert, I love you. You barely lost. Robert, smile. You barely lost to Krikor. Stop it. I love how competitive you are. You're going to crush it at the Isle of Man. I'm so proud of you. You just passed my test by not giving in and staying competitive. Get out of here. I got to say goodbye to everybody. You just passed barely. F+ for you. Thank you for tuning in to Chess.com's coverage of the 2019 Sinquefield Cup, part of our overall coverage of the 2019 Grand Chess Tour. If you're with us on Twitch, Chess.com, or anywhere else, we really do appreciate your support. With you, these events are possible, and so we really mean it from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for tuning in. I'm now going to send it off. We will see you tomorrow for what looks to be a thrilling finish for the biggest over-the-board event of the year. And tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific. See you then.
Oh my God, Danny! Like, why would you do that?
We're not on microphone, right? They can hear us?
The comeback is happening. You know,
Game 5. Every comeback was meant to stop somewhere. Does that even work? I don't know, but it ends
anyway,
right now.
that's 2-2.
It's 2-2. Game 5. Go. Again. Even again. I'm sticking with that opening. It gives me a little increment on the clock. See, you're copying me. Remove. Yeah. Here we go. Am I left loose? No. Okay. Thankfully. You didn't wonder. Yet. Sit. Yeah. Sit. Removing. What am I doing with this move? Playing on the right side of the board, man. With my nickname. Okay, you press the hook. No, I'm helping you. He was in your way. You're welcome. No. Was that legal? You missed it. No! I will flag you! No! It's happening again! Oh, you're not resigning? No! Get away! resigns.